606 guy. 606.
Pull up on your ass and pop the trunk. Nello pop up out that bitch with that pump.
Correct.
And it's it down in your footnote, right?
Footnote 959.
Last one on the bottom. And you're referring to the slide presentation that was done from this data that we were just looking at, the complete survey information, right?
It's my understanding this was a presentation made to the CMA, is my understanding.
Okay. So it's easier for you to reference. Let me give you that document as well, which is 5054. All right. Before you look at it, I just want to 5054, a set of slides that were presented to the EC, right?
There we go, slide.
Is that right?
It's my recollection it was the CMA.
Okay. But these are slides that were presented to the CMA summarizing the YouGov survey information, right?
This is the slide deck I reviewed. That's my understanding of what the slide deck is.
So you reviewed 5054, right?
I reviewed 5054.
Did you, in coming to your conclusions, review RX 5053?
I don't recall the full document. I tried, my recollection, trying to find more information. I will note that the slide deck 5054 does not, don't recall having that question asked. On slide 11 and 12 of 5054, Your Honor. These are the 3% and the 5% numbers that I referenced. And you will see here that a large fraction of those users are said to not play Call of Duty. And it's my understanding that if a game is one of their favorite games, it's odd that a very large percent of them do not actually play that game. It's strange that, you know, you don't actually play a game if it's one of your favorite games. And so just having access to this deck, when I looked at it, I saw the survey as the population of PlayStation users that didn't condition on whether Call of Duty was their favorite game.
Okay, so you didn't understand what the basis of this slide was? You found it questionable
That's what it sounds like.
on RX 5054-011?
I didn't say I found it questionable. I looked at that document. I noted that there's a population of PlayStation users. There's a submission to the CMA by Microsoft that represented it being as a more representative sample. The Microsoft raised criticism of the survey used by the CMA because they engaged in a sample description. They focused on users who only spent, I think, over $100 over 10 hours on Call of Duty. This one, they said, you know, we want to look at a wider sample of users. And so they have this YouGov survey. So with those documents, I evaluated the slide as if it was looking at the wider population.
Right. It was looking at all gamers, right, who use existing PS or PlayStation gamers, right? And
are you still representing that it's conditional on it being their favorite game? I guess I'm just wondering, where are we now in our understanding of this?
I'm trying to figure out what you knew about the survey when you said it was consistent with your results. They do not limit it to people who play Call of Duty.
It's my understanding it's not limited because it has a significant fraction of users who do not play Call of Duty in the sample.
66% of the people that were surveyed don't play at all and therefore wouldn't switch, right?
For this question, that is the number.
And
What?
if you look at the next page, which is 012,
Oh my god.
and the question is, what would gamers plan to buy
Oh, hey, well, whatever.
on PlayStation if a PlayStation did not have COD, right? That-
Yeah, what would gamers planning to buy a PS do if COD were not on PS?
And 31% here would play COD, but would still buy the PlayStation, right?
That is what the slide said.
And it says 5% would move to Xbox, right?
That's what the slide says.
So do you understand that to be 5% of this entire world of folks that use a PlayStation?
I understand it to be 5% of the sample who are European users people who would have planned to buy PS. What would they do?
So it's 5% of this big world we've defined, right?
That is my understanding.
And that's not the world that you measured, right? In your foreclosure model?
In paragraph 762 of my initial report, in footnote 958, I provide a way to convert the conversion rate into something that is comparable to the last.
Professor Lee, can you answer my question? Did they measure? I didn't ask you whether you could convert it. I'm asking you, did they measure this? Did you measure the same or assess the same group of people that the YouGov survey did?
I think the way we started, my analysis started with all PS users, and then I narrowed down to those who play COD.
He
Global,
tried
it's
it.
global. I understand the YouGov survey is a sample of Europe, where Call of Duty is less popular, is my understanding. But I looked at the global, and then I narrowed it down. And so what I did is provide you a way of converting the 20% from that smaller circle and figuring out what the equivalent percentage would be for the big circle. And so I can do an apples to apples comparison then between those percentages.
So this 5% though are people that say COD is their first or second favorite game. Is that right? Or
That's
no?
not my
Yes, they have a first or second game they would play favorite on PlayStation.
I in the slide deck I reviewed, I did not see the sample restriction you're referring to. I note that 64% of people on this slide do not play Call of Duty.
Right. So Call of Duty can't be their first or second favorite game.
I don't know if I'm just interpreting it that it seems
They have a first or second.
strange.
So you don't know whether this 5% are people that say Call of Duty is their first or second favorite game, right?
He don't know shit.
People on this slide do not play Call of Duty.
You don't know the answer to that question, do you?
Yeah, maybe I can just cut through it. You didn't look at the survey itself.
didn't have-
You only looked at these slides.
I looked at the slide is what I had access
All right,
to.
why don't
and
we take our lunch break? Why don't we resume at 12:35? Thank you.
12:35. Dang, what time is that there? He said, man, cut this off because he getting his back kicked in. Oh, let's try something else here. Alright, I don't know exactly what's been going on because I came in late. I tried to get in earlier, but them seats got filled quick, so yeah. This day 3 of If You Know, You Know. I can't say what it is, but it's day 3 of that. And if you've been following posts on social media, it ain't been looking too good for him. Me personally, I haven't heard anything.
Was getting annoyed because she didn't even say. Because
Who the hell is this?
last time they were like, "Oh,
Mute him. I don't know him. I'm using somebody else's stream to, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But anywho, we don't need his analysis right now, but that didn't turn out good. That didn't sound like the Sarah Bond, let's go on break. That sound like some, alright man, you over here pussyfooting on this court case, nigga. You hearing what she's saying and you hear vividly what she's saying, but you trying to tiptoe around this subject. Yeah, we ain't got time for that. We're gonna go on break so you can reevaluate your thoughts. That's what that sound like to me. But I only got the back end of the combo. So hold on, let me see what Post on, man. Cause Post been on it early, man. Post that kid that be at school and You know what I'm saying? He the teacher's pet. He got the apples and everything. He be at front seat. He don't ever sit in the back seats. That man be on it. Hold on, let me see. He said he gonna get this knowledge.
No one understands it. I don't even think he understands himself, Black Gamer, to be honest. I genuinely don't think he understands at all.
Well, I got him talk.
Because he was tongue-tying himself.
Yeah, you see, he's saying the same mess, and I just caught the back end of it.
As well. It's nuts. But guys, I really appreciate you being here, and I also appreciate.
He got a better mic than me. Alley boy saying sister stand. Man, what post that? Let me see. Yeah, CC talking to Sony after lunch break. Hey, this dude J-Rock, bro. Hello, man. Hello. Where'd I go? I think I put it in a rabbit hole. Look at this.
Yeah,
Somebody gonna look at this.
bro. If it goes through, then fanboys are good.
We don't need to know. If it goes through, it's gonna be lit. Nigga, we lit. What's good, Cap King in chat? Hit the like button. Damn, they gave me a dope little click to view That's dope. They got a little update on the application I be using to broadcast. This is fire. Some Cap King, bro. I don't understand, man. When I'm gonna get a new name? Cause I don't be capping, bro. I really don't. I be dead serious with what I be saying. Oh, dang. Okay, they ain't got it on here. Dang, where the screen at? Cause I want y'all to see what Buddy posts, man. This shit funny as hell. See, I just be freestyling, so I don't be having all my stuff set up like it should be. Hold on. He's like, nigga, help me. Nigga. Oh, no, that ain't it. Let's see if this one is. Yeah, this gotta be it right here. Alright, let me switch. No, that ain't it. Dang. I'm trying to get I know I can mirror the website over here, but I don't know how to do it. That's camera overlays. No. Oh, is this it? Oh, wow. You got to update to the pro. Bruh. All right. Now y'all just being cheap. Now, bro. That's petty. So they took away my feature that I was able to show screen share. That is petty. Wow. Anywho, let's listen to what Buddy got to say.
Or Xbox. I'm about Game Pass, more money for me and more games to play. The flip side to that is, you know, Microsoft say right now that it's profitable, and that's absolutely fine. But
all right, I don't want to hear what he's talking about. Cause that's what I was trying to tell people. At the end of the day, I don't understand how you can hate on this at all. You save money, you get to play games. What's your problem? Unless you just don't play games. Now that's a whole nother story then. If you just a bitch.
Yeah, keep it down or so. Ever since the big boom, curfews and weapons surges have destabilized things.
And I am playing Fist right now. Oh, this joker be booming. Hope it he said hope is the deal. Did I look like it's going through? Did it look like it's going? It's looked like it's been going through since Sarah Bond was on the stand a couple days ago. Is this the absolutely? You already know it is.
I mean, they're arguing against.
Right now,
yeah.
other Zinc, they even went into a break real quick because Buddy was getting his back kicked in so bad with the questions that he kept trying to either backtrack or he was trying not to answer the questions honestly. So the judge got irritated with his answers. He just was like, "We just gonna go take a break at this point," and that was coming from the FTC, from the part that I got. I can go for a streak. He said, "How is the deal? What's up, Mello? What's in everybody? Hey, what's going on?" So yeah, pretty much for the long. They was interviewing the guy. I don't know who. I forgot who. I'm probably gonna ask Post who that was on the stand, but I know he was part of the FTC, and his answers, he just kept trying to be very vague and like real, like, you know, not say combative, but he was trying to not to answer the question straight, a straight answer. He just kept dancing around the question, and the judge at that point just got irritated with him, just like, all right, we just gonna up and just do a 45-minute break. I think it was 45-minute break, or just take a break and just in general, because she was even getting irritated on his answers. And this was the Microsoft lawyers who was questioning the FTC, and he came with some, and it was mainly about a survey, and they was asking about, you know, how many people do they think, or what percentage of people do they think was going to convert over to Xbox if Call of Duty happened to, you know, this deal happened to go through. And it was a very low margin. It wasn't even, you know, significant enough to even talk about. So, but he didn't want to confirm that, and he was just dancing around the question. So the judge was just like, you know what, 45, let's go on break. We'll resume this at the break. Yada, yada, yada. You can tell a difference of energy with the judge compared to when she was interviewing Matt Booty and Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer. It was just a whole different, like, vibe, if you get what I'm saying. His numbers was all, his numbers, his numbers wasn't, his math wasn't mathing. His math wasn't mathing. I got in at the last part because I was late coming into the room, and then it was already full. Dang, hold on real quick.
Rebuilt and stuff because we just bought a new house. So I had 2 internet lines in the house because I work in IT, so I had like a whole infrastructure and stuff. But I had Virgin and TalkTalk, so I might switch over to the TalkTalk and get the BT if I can get the Game Pass for free. I have got 3 years of Game Pass anyway, so I bought an account on eBay for, what was it, £150, and you can do like the home share thing and whatever. So I'm alright with a price rise for the next 3 years. Game Pass on PC only $10. Imagine, yeah, it's crazy cheap, mad cheap. I want to buy Final Fantasy 16 and 7 on my Xbox, but you know what? What? That's like saying I want to play Halo on my PlayStation. What does that mean? I don't understand. No, I still don't have it, but when Starfield hit, I will. Okay, fair enough. So I guess you're gonna get Game Pass when.
Dang, my bad, man. Can't wait for these goddamn kids to get their butt back to school. Let me have an update, please. Oh yeah, I got you. Who got their back kicked in? It was the FTC person that got his back kicked in. This is not the FTC, but gameplay stream. It's a little bit of both. Actually, it's a little bit of both. I can't say that word that you just said, them 3 letters, but yes, it's that 3 letters be playing in the background while I'm playing the game, and just conversating over it. But long story short, right now they are on break. They went on a quick break. I got in at the last minute, kind of, sort of, setting up because I missed my spot in the Zoom call because I didn't get in time fast enough, and they was pretty much full at that point. But I managed to get in, and by the time I got in, it was them going on break because the judge and the Microsoft lawyers was getting upset with the FTC and how he was answering his questions. So she just said, let's go on break. We'll come back. I think she said at like 12:55 or 12:50, something like that. I don't even know what location it is right now because right now it's 2:07 where I'm at. But yeah, they went on break. Unfortunately, right when I clicked the stream button. But it was rightfully so because, like I said, you can tell from the energy from the previous interviews, from Matt Booty to Sarah Bond, even Phil Spencer's court hearing, the vibe of the judge and how she even responded to questions is totally different right now. Like, she seems upset and agitated, just like the Microsoft lawyers is, because of how he's answering about those numbers and the percentage of people that would have so-called quote unquote in air quotes left PlayStation to go to Microsoft if this deal would have went through with Call of Duty at a particular time. They went and had a survey they made up and placed, and she was pretty much going over the numbers or the percentage that so-called claim that they would have left Sony product just to play Call of Duty on Xbox, and it was very low. And he couldn't explain this survey. He couldn't give out detail or information regarding that survey to the judge and the lawyer's liking. So she said, hey, we going on break. You out here pussyfooting around, and we ain't got time for that. I want to go eat. So she dipped out. But like I said, from the last one, like, I think the only interview that was somewhat rough was Matt Booty's interview. And I don't want to call it an interrogation, but when he got on the stand and he talked with the judge, it was kind of rough with him because of the emails and, him trying to explain that a little bit. But Phil and Sarah Bonds, when they got into that Game Pass mix and they kept talking about how the xCloud works and the structure and everything, that played in their favor, in my opinion. If I'm looking at the court case, that definitely played in their opinion, because just off the judge and how she was answering the questions and how she was answering the questions was totally different. He said it is the FTC. That's yeah. I heard the POS magician Jim Ryan showed up to court. Is that true? No, nope. Jim Ryan did not come. Matter of fact, let me check the post real quick. But I'm almost certain Jim Ryan wasn't there. I'm almost certain he wasn't. He was not there. Jim Ryan showed up to court. Post. Because if he showed up, it was gonna be a bloodbath. If he would have showed up, that would have been a bloodbath. Let me see. Nah, they still ain't in.
To pick up Phantom Liberty.
Yeah, nah, they ain't. They still ain't in court yet. But yeah. So I was just gonna put a little gameplay. They got some new games up in Game Pass that I haven't played. This game called Fist, and I want to play this one also, but I'm gonna wait because they said this is like little nightmares, and I'm gonna wait on this one because I think that's gonna be actually really good. So I gotta hear what's going on. So I decided to play a little bit of Fist just to start it off, see what's going on with it. These the Zinc. They shutting down every FTC real quick. Yeah, they shutting them questions down quick as hell with the FTC. Like I said, she got frustrated. She just cut the questions. She cut the lawyer off in the middle of the questions and was just like, we going to break. Just instantly just cut it off. And when they do something like that, that mean they irritated. Whatever that person was doing was just really irritable.
What are you afraid of? Those Legion Iron Dogs
So
yapping for much longer.
when they get back, they're gonna be doing the other part of the FTC interview. Hopefully he get his shit in order and want to answer some real questions with some real with real numbers, because all of that was maybe, and the key word in there was maybe. Like, this maybe happen, this might happen, this might take a turn. They never had any concrete proof that anybody was going to go anywhere outside of this weak survey that they had. And this one of them type of surveys where, you know, they probably asked 100 people. You know what I'm saying? At best, probably got 75 people to answer these questions, and that was the results they got. And even with those results, it said, hey, we don't have a heavy percent. It wasn't like 60 or 75% said, hey, we're going to move to Xbox if Call of Duty is exclusive on Xbox. It wasn't like that at all. It was like 5%, 3% from that survey. Like, it was asking stuff like, if Call of Duty was on exclusive on Xbox, would you keep your Xbox? I mean, would you keep your PlayStation or your PS5 or whatever? Or would you convert over to only playing on the Xbox? It was them type of dumb questions. But again, not telling how many people took the survey actually, and how many people actually answered it honestly. Don't know. But they used it as ammo. They used it as leverage. So, yeah. He said, no, Mello. He said they shut down every content creator stream on this case. Be careful. Oh. All right, but I'm talking over it, so we just gonna coach through it. Let's see what happens. If they shut it down, hey, man, we had a good run, G. Matter of fact, I know where that place they ain't gonna be able to shut me down. Hey, I'm finna. Hold on. What time is it? Okay, this one I'm gonna do. The second part, I'm gonna put it on Twitch. So once they come out of break, I mean not Twitch, I'm gonna put it on Kick. It's gonna be my same name, Double O Mello on Kick, and I'm gonna put it over there. I know they ain't gonna kick you over there, cause Kick is Kick. You get what I'm saying? They reckless over there. He thinks for the verbal update, I'm about to go back to work, and we'll only be able to listen in. Okay, bet, Others Inc. Matter of fact, make sure you follow me on Kick. Hold on, I'm finna put it in the comment section real quick, man, cause that's where I'm gonna put it at. I don't want to risk my channel over here on YouTube just yet. We close to getting monetized, so let's see. We're gonna do it like this. All right, and that's my Kick account, man. I don't have Kick or anything else. Oh, dang, man. Shit, what I'm gonna do? How can I do this? Cause I want to keep the commentary going. Man, yeah, Others Inc. You might have to get the when we do State of Gaming. Yeah, I got someone else on Kick as well. They got someone else on Kick also. Damn, brother. All right. Damn. I don't know, shit, man. We probably don't do it there. I can risk it on Kick though. I can't risk it too much on YouTube. That's the only thing. So I'm gonna try it on Kick, but I'm gonna keep it off of YouTube. We probably just do the State of Gaming and then get the update from there with posting Noah and stuff in the team. So we'll go from there. But hold on, let me see if they off a break yet. Let me go ahead and get that set up real quick.
I used to be a goalkeeper. I used to play for Dulwich Hamlet.
Nah. He said, nah. He said, good, we should just stay here. He said, do a lot of gameplay over it. Yeah, that's what I think. Hold on, matter of fact, I'm gonna try to put some I can put some music over it too, like in the background type shit. I'm gonna put it like real low, but enough. Let me see. We're gonna tweak with it live. Hold on. Matter of fact, while we got time, I'm gonna go ahead and try to do it now too. So hold on one moment. Like sad, but I don't even know why they just don't let people stream this shit, to be honest with you. Because they redacted a lot of information. Even in the court case, they redacted information. So it's like, come on, man. Come on, man. Don't be like that, man.
Like doo-doo. So what I think is probably gonna happen.
Oh no, he giving his perspective. Okay, I don't want to listen to his perspective. We here for my shit. Let me see. What can I do? Oh yeah, hold on. Let me use this real quick. This should work. Alright, I'm gonna try to use this background music real quick. Let me see. Let me know if it's too loud.
Held a lot of stuff back because I remember you could go into the files and just change a couple things here and there, and do a couple modifications, and get it looking like the E3 trailer again, which was mad. Racist to the football players, I think. Yeah, when they lose, yeah. I know a lot of people that have had racism, and again, it's just like, you know, you want more people to enjoy football, but then you're being racist towards. It's just I don't know, man. I just stay away.
Your ass want to be funny. I see other thing. Whatever. I ain't even did that yet.
And again, it's just like, you know.
Well, I want to make sure I get the audio just right.
People to enjoy football, but then you're being racist towards. It's just I don't know, man. I just stay away.
Your ass want to be funny. I see other thing. Whatever. I ain't even did that yet. I want to make sure I get the audio just right.
You're being racist towards. It's just I don't know, man. I just stay away.
All right, I think it's good. All right, cool. Let me know if that the background music is good enough. Cause I don't want it to be too loud, but I want it to be just right. But so you can at least hear the audio. And then I got the game going, so we should be good. Unless somebody snitch.
The cutscenes don't.
Dang, come on. Oh, he had a suit. Background music good. All right, bet up. Cool. All right, well, we just waiting. Probably gonna be like I think they probably do a 45-minute break, I think. Sure, I think we about 30 minutes in, so we got like maybe another 15 minutes or so before they come back in, hopefully.
What's going on?
Y'all played this game yet? I know this was on PlayStation, but
Been arrested. The Iron Dogs just came to the noodle stall and took Urso away.
the Iron Dogs. I like that.
This was Urso's, but I hid it for him. I don't understand this veteran stuff. I'll leave it in your hands.
This machine still works. Let me try to get a fix on Urso.
Urso's been taken to Torch Tower.
Oh, snap.
He's done for now. I've never heard of any Ferguson
Oh, so he had to go save his homie.
I'll head over to Torch Tower and bring Urso back.
Y'all played this game yet? By any chance? If so, is it good or am I wasting my time?
Really want to take this place.
You know that Urso is the only friend I have left in Torch City.
This is for you. Ursa, only you were needed.
He gave me the keys to the G-Wagon. The G-Wagon. Uh-oh. He said, I gotta do this for the bros. I gotta do it for the bros. I don't know, this kind of inspired me too. This is all done on Unreal Engine 5 too. Well, Unreal Engine. I don't know if it's 5 or not.
This is
Alright.
Torch Tower is to the northeast.
Oh, that's a side shoot. So what, we can go through alleys or something or no?
Out of my way.
Flung his legs. What's wrong with you, cuz? Well, we just go straight, I guess. Oh, y'all gonna do better than that with the sniper rifle. That's all y'all got? This is furry one and all of the furries, furry society, all furry society. What? I thought I could smash that or something. I guess not. Game look good. Old town. Boxes are obstacles. Oh, snap. I want to gotta grab him off the ground. I'm gonna try that next. Dang. Look at this nigga. Oh yeah, you can grab him too. Okay, why did he land on the ground? Better. Oh, okay. Dang, I failed. And there's something up there. Fuck. This nigga trash. He can't do nothing. Hulk smash. And he said, you don't know what it do? Just kill it.
Why? Why do we have to guard this broken?
Hold on, let me see if it's up.
But I'm probably gonna go, and I'm not a fan of The Last of Us.
No. Alright. Hey! Oh! Oh, when they on the ground like that, you get the crushing. Okay. Press A while jumping or hang on the ledge. Oh, you got to get an upgrade for that? Oh, they petty. Alright, well, we can go back over here, though.
Missing map data. Looks like the tracking function is still offline. Raiden to Urso. Raiden to Urso.
This ain't bad. I ain't did much, but...
Tower right away.
See? Come on. Oh. Man, y'all better move faster than that. hit him with that Watusi twist, boy. Hold on, wait. Hold on, I got something for you too. You can just throw him. You can't punch him in the face. Or maybe that's an upgrade or something. I don't know. Oh, shit. I hit the B button, execution. Nigga, I was already doing that move. Come on, stop it. Y'all better than that. Hold on, let's go this way. I'm nosy. Hey, you! No, there ain't nobody even in there.
I've just stopped making.
Alright, nah, they still ain't on. Let me check real quick. Alright, probably looking at like maybe 10 minutes, I want to say. I'm going to give it 10 minutes. Well, it's clearly something here, but I guess it's a special ability I got to unlock.
The number of dog patrols has increased. Torch Tower can't be far away now.
Dang, grab that little nigga. I was trying to grab him in there. See, you need to be able to double jump. Bro, y'all gotta make this. This can't be the game, nigga. Buddy is working with that. Work. HP extraction. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Wow. That was a lot of work right there, buddy. Let me see.
So we just started again. So we started from the beginning.
I'm trying to see if it started up just yet.
Graphically realistic game.
I'm trying not to miss the rest of it this time.
Oh, bro, that's a big statement. Dead Island 2 was the most polished and graphically realistic game released.
Hey.
Okay, you're gonna have to question that because I'm not sure about that. I haven't played Dead Island 2, but anyone who has, please let me know. Because to be fair, if it was right, it would reflect in the review scores, but it doesn't reflect in the review scores, so I'm not sure.
No, I don't. That ain't always the case.
Story, but don't bother with it.
There's countless games I'd have played that was good.
Yeah, see,
that did not reflect in the review scores.
That is a good thing to do, but the problem with that is it gets boring really quickly. So if there's not an engaging story, I don't really like doing the same thing over and over again like that. Which I'm kind of being a hypocrite. Warhaven is pretty much the same thing. But it's a different type of.
Okay, never mind. I thought this. Nah, it didn't work. All right.
Have you played Gollum?
I thought I had the Hulk smash.
Bro, are you trying to take the mic? Are you asking me if I played Gollum? I'm gonna skip over that one.
Okay.
I have friends.
You sure keep your ears close to the ground, kid. I'm going to Torch Tower. Show me the quickest path.
You get straight to the point. There's a ventilation board outside of Torch Tower. You can ride the wind to get there. Urso made this radio, right? Let me
Let me see, Ray.
Tagged. I copied this map myself. It's not for sale. I want to thank you for saving my life.
I bet Urso got a lot of help from you with the radio's tracking function.
Oh, now y'all snitching.
Discovered me and Urso's little secret.
You'll see. And now monkey. Oh yeah, I saw the Monkey Island thing. Yeah. So play that if you're jam, but it's really the PvP is hella fun. Okay, I'll give it a try. You guys are giving me so many games. Listen, I've
What's
got the
this?
same amount of hours that you guys have got in one day
Repairs
as
or
well, so
upgrades?
I don't know
Definitely
how
want
I'm
to go
supposed to do
upgrade.
that and do the editing and do the Jesus Christ. you're killing
Oh
me.
snap!
I'm really enjoying Redfall, bro. You're such a liar, bro.
Mm.
Zero game. I'm not even here. I'm not even trying to be nice. That.
Oh, you killed it after that one. You killed this whole conversation. I don't know. Do we have how many points is it? Oh, it's 2. I ain't got enough for that. What about repairs, cuz? Okay. All right now. So pretty much the next part over. Gotcha. Yeah. You ain't got nothing in here, bro. Damn, G. Yo, pup.
I've seen this on. They had a collector's edition of this somewhere. I don't know if it was on Iron 8-bit or something like that, or limited run games or something like that.
Famous than Pong.
No, I haven't played it, but
Rumor mongering. Okay, you gotta use the analog stick to move. Okay. Thought you could use the D-pad or something. I just one away.
This is a restricted military area. No unauthorized access allowed.
Nigga, die already. This is restricted area. Better. Bigger. Hey, get your bacon, lettuce, cheese. Get out of here, cuz. I tap into my Ninja Gaiden. You know what I'm saying? That's what we used to do on Ninja Gaiden. Force of habit, man. My bad.
Hacking the terminal. Why did the boss order us to stand guard here? There's rigor, so it's organized crime.
you see, on PlayStation 5 it was okay, because what you would do is you'd get the PS4 version and then you'd play it on the PS5.
No, man.
Heavy guard. We suicide for any persons that try to get inside. Those scum have no chance of getting to Torch Tower without the drill.
I need to get my hands on the transformer drill to climb Torch Tower. Better head back and find someone who knows where the drill is.
Not after we whoop they ass. Bitch ass nigga. There go back. So it's a lot of backtracking apparently. And go see if somebody knows something about a... He said a drill? I think he said a drill. I'm almost certain he said drill. Should a game like this have backtracking? Oh shit. You better smoke his boots. So what, they were just trying to take all weapons away so they can only have all the weapons? Oh yeah, it was a drill.
That's right. It's no doubt guarded by a crack team of iron dogs. You should go talk to Master Wu.
Master Wu.
Through the secret door on the left side of my room. That's where Master Wu's crew is hiding out.
Oh, it's not.
Master Wu is really spry for his age. All thanks to
Pump, 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 pump. Pump, pump, pump it up. And then you got carrot whiskey. Okay. So you hit click here on the wheel and hold to restore small health. Alright. Say that, shorty. Nah, we ain't gonna pop that. We ain't gonna pop a bean real quick. Obtain the Westside News issue. Alright. Alright, go down here like always. Come on, wait. What's that? Okay. I had to double check. Probably was something of interest. Hey, yo! If this ain't a boss battle area, I don't know what is. This just screams boss battle right here. Yeah, screams boss battle. Dang. Oh, get some of that whiskey power. Bitch ass nigga. Y'all cool? Alright, y'all cool. Alright, let me see if it started yet. Hold on.
Xbox would have
Oh, we back.
incentive and ability to foreclose.
We live,
is
y'all.
What Sony might do in response, right?
I consider potential reactions. I actually explicitly analyzed price effects. What might happen with prices?
But there's lots of things Sony can do in response to competition, right?
They can compete.
Generally speaking, yes.
And it did that by buying Bungie just days after the Activision Xbox transaction was announced, right?
I don't know if it responded, but it did purchase Bungie after the acquisition.
But it could do things like that in the future, right?
I presume that would be the
He
case.
said I just got through
And
done watching
one of the things it could do now, before the transaction
about this whole
is completed,
FTC
is
thing and
it
losing
could
their
come to an
mind.
agreement with Microsoft to
I gotta go check that
Call
out.
of Duty and maintain Call of Duty on the PlayStation, right?
Yeah, we live now, y'all.
Generally, an agreement requires a meeting of both sides.
Hold on, mute myself.
but that is a possibility.
There's an offer outstanding from Microsoft to Sony that would allow them to maintain Call of Duty on Sony's platform for 10 years, right?
It is my understanding an offer is available or made.
And like most business people, if they could come to mutually beneficial terms and sign that agreement, and that would allow Sony and PlayStation to keep Call of Duty on its platform, right?
That's my general understanding of the terms that have been offered.
You didn't include that in your analysis because it hasn't been signed, right?
In my analysis, I only look at agreements I look at agreements that have been signed. This one, you're correct. I'm not taking it as given.
So there are other agreements that Xbox and Microsoft have signed with other participants in the market, right?
In particular markets, there are agreements.
Those are signed agreements,
That is my understanding.
suggesting that two parties came to an agreement on mutually beneficial economic terms, right?
That is my understanding.
And you're going to presume those contracts are going to be honored, right?
I presume they are, the parties have come to an agreement, and those are in effect in my analysis.
This motherfucker
Now-
stutter stepping like a motherfucker.
One of the things that Sony could do and has done in the past is to take a game that was on multiple platforms and pay to have it only on the PlayStation, right?
That is my understanding.
And you know they've done that very recently, right?
Oh yeah. You heard
Do you
this
have a
game called
particular
Final
example?
Fantasy?
Yes. Do you know the game Final Fantasy 16?
Oh,
I have heard of that game.
I bet
And,
your ass
do you
did.
know that was on Xbox and PlayStation 5?
I don't know what the consoles it was released on.
What?
Well, assuming it was on those platforms last year, I want you to take a look at RX 2073.
You know you done fucked up, right? You know you done fucked up. Hey, yo, what happened? Yo, what happened? He said, this just happened last year, sir.
I see the document.
Oh, he was
Yellow
reading the
paper, that
document.
means it's confidential.
Oh, he was reading the document.
Sealed, so we're just going to refer to it.
Oh, okay.
Understood.
And this is an email, a Sony email, right?
All right, so they going through a little briefing of the email with the
And
spacing.
it's dated February 25th, 2020, right?
Yes.
And there's a chart on page 8. Look at that chart. Understand that
Excuse me? Is there a chart on page 8?
2073-008.
Thank you. I see that.
now you know that games can be put on a platform under a general publishing agreement, right?
That's my understanding.
But sometimes folks at Sony or Xbox engage in specific agreements that provide some limitations or specific agreements about how that game will be played either on their platform or put on other platforms, right?
My understanding.
That's not unusual. You've seen those partial or total arrangements, right?
I have seen similar types of arrangements.
Now, look at this, and this is looking at FY 22, right?
Yes.
And you see down there on the left, all of those are measured as global, right?
Well, I don't know.
I'm not going to go into any more detail. It's just
Than
that
that, okay.
those are the region is global for each of those, right?
I see that.
Doesn't say U.S. only, right?
I see that.
So go down one, two, three. The third game there. Do you see that?
I see that.
And that game is published by another publisher, not Xbox or PlayStation 5, right?
Yes. Oh, it is not published.
Right. It says what genre it is, right?
Yes.
And it says, looks like an estimate of total revenues, right?
I do not know what that column represents.
Now turn to page 013, different chart. The title of that chart for FY '22. I don't want to read it out loud. Do you see the title of that chart?
I see that.
Okay. And this involves some contracts, right?
I came for the transformer.
It says contracted, that part you can say.
I see.
I see that word.
I need
Now
to
go down to the
transform
second game. Do you see that?
I'll get him out. No matter how dangerous
Yes.
he is.
That's the same game we were pointing out on the last chart, right?
That fist of yours.
Yes.
And in the
The organization
last column, it describes how that game will be shown
the Iron Dogs have strengthened
in terms of what
the
platform,
Killers
right?
in suicide. I don't know how good your skills are after all.
I see that the terms there.
For several
See the heading for the term?
Yes.
And you accept that that's what Sony is talking about when they're talking about this game on this, in this chart, right?
I understand. I believe so.
Okay. Now, Sony has many first-party exclusive games, right?
That is my understanding.
And it also has some third-party games that it pays to have exclusive, or at least for periods of time, right?
I believe that is the case.
Take a look at RX 2098.
This is just a minor trick. The fist is a machine after all. If you want to make it strong,
See that, Dogma?
you'll need to exploit the mechanical
I do.
power of the Legion.
Ask you that when a third-party game is taken exclusive, let's just say it's
Yes.
PlayStation, is that an advantage for PlayStation?
Their local boss Pharaoh is downtown now and carries it.
It depends what the
Hey, no offense. Very well.
comparison would be absent the exclusivity. So when making a comparison with an advantage or something that's harmful, it's important to specify what the +4 alternative is.
So you can't, and I know you won't because of your prior writings, you won't say that exclusive games themselves are harmful.
Exclusivity can have both pro and anti-competitive effects.
Find Pharaoh. Retrieve the data.
Now, take a look at this is,
Whereabouts.
can we show it redacted? So take a look at RX 2098 and you see that, again, this is a Sony email, right?
Yes.
And it's dated October 12th, 2022, right?
Yes.
Down in the second email, see that says, I, so-and-so, best from someone else. See that?
I see the second email, yes.
And when you look at that, you see a discussion about comparing this type of treatment of games between two platforms.
I'm sorry, I was reading it. Can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, doesn't this discuss comparison between treatment of games on one platform versus how many of those are in another platform?
The email is making a comparison like that.
Again, in and of itself, taking games exclusive is not automatically anti-competitive, or harmful.
I don't think a general statement can be made without further detail.
Can a new game that's made exclusive be a response to a competitor?
In sort of a hypothetical world, many things are possible.
What if a game had been on Xbox and PlayStation and it was taken off the next, version of the game and only put on PlayStation? Do you think that's a response to competition?
Not clear I follow.
So, game is multi-platform, and the next year when the next version is coming out, one of the platforms pays to keep it for a certain time period only on their platform, and it's no longer available on the other platform.
Under that hypothetical, what is the question?
Is that a competitive response?
I don't know what you mean by competitive response to what?
The other competitor who had it on its platform before.
Without understanding more about the hypothetical, I'm not quite sure I know how to answer that question.
So even when a game is on multiple platforms and it's removed from a competitor's platform, it's not automatically anti-competitive. You said, right?
Exclusivity is not automatically anti or pro-competitive. It depends on, for example, if the game is different as a result of the exclusivity. For example, it's you comparing against without the exclusivity, what would have happened is an important consideration.
And you're saying without more knowledge, you can't say whether by removing it from competitor's platform for a certain time period, whether that's a competitive response.
Again, without the hypothetical, I'm not sure what response you're referring to.
Let's end by talking about what's going to happen if the merge goes through and if it does not, okay? And what happens, what the status is today. So I'm going to ask you some questions first, and then we're going to put up a chart so we don't have to see my handwriting and see if we can make it clear. All right. I'm going to ask you about COD on certain platforms, whether they're on today, whether they will be on after the merger, and whether they will be on
Okay.
You can pick a date. You want to say October 1st. Say the merger doesn't go through. Okay? By October 1st, it's picking the date that's it's a few months out, and what will happen. Talking about what the world looks like with the merger and what it looks like without, right?
The with merger world and but for world are both uncertain. They're in the future, and there's not a precise clarity on a particular date something will or will not happen.
But for world, you're trying to predict what will happen without the transaction.
Forward looking, what would happen without the
Your
transaction?
point is you don't know that for certain.
Difficult to predict the future for certain.
Just trying to determine from what happened before the transaction and what's going on, what you think is going to happen in the market, what it will look like without the transaction.
So my economic analysis is comparing a future world with the merger against the future world without the merger.
Without the merger, the only change is that the merger doesn't occur, right?
That is a primary difference between the with merger and the but for world.
Okay, so let's try this. Talking about COD, right?
Okay.
Today, is it on Xbox console?
That is my understanding.
Is it on the PlayStation 5?
That is my understanding.
Is it on the PC?
That is my understanding.
Is it on Nintendo?
It's my understanding it is not on the Switch console.
Let me just ask Roger. Roger, can you put up just that column first over the other two? No, okay, sorry, that's my fault. It's not on GeForce, right? Or it's not able to be streamed on GeForce today, right?
It's my understanding Call of Duty is not available on GeForce now.
Nor on Boosteroid, right?
That is my understanding.
Ubitus, no.
My understanding, that's my understanding.
And where? No.
No,
And EE, right?
not to my understanding.
So let's go with the merger. It's going to be on Xbox, right? You can focus on that. And you're gonna check my work. If you don't agree, we'll change it. Okay, so with the merger, it's going to be on Xbox, right?
That is my It's likely to be on Xbox. That's my understanding. It will be likely on Xbox.
And with the merger, you don't agree that it will be on PlayStation, or you do?
I don't agree it will be on PlayStation for certainty. Difficult to predict the future. I think the likelihood of Call of Duty on PlayStation is lower with the merger than without the merger. My analysis looked at all Activision content and that there's likely foreclosure as a result of the merger.
You understand the comparison is not whether it's more likely with the merger or more without. It's, is it likely with the merger?
I looked at the chart is no longer on my screen.
Yeah. I'm just asking you, this column, just when you compare the but-for world, is it likely to be on with the merger?
My economic opinion is that it's likely that foreclosure of Activision content will occur with the merger in the console markets.
What about Call of Duty?
It's difficult because foreclosure can take many forms. And it's difficult to predict with certainty the exact form that foreclosure will take. I noted that one of my conclusions is that the merged firm will have a likely economic incentive to take titles like COD exclusive. But to predict what will happen due to the merger, there's uncertainty. And my analysis informs the probability of foreclosure, complete foreclosure, but also partial foreclosure potentially happening. So my conclusion is that Activision content overall will likely be foreclosed in console markets. Does that
What about Call of Duty?
yeah, so Call of Duty, it's difficult to give a precise,
Is it likely or not likely? And it's post 2025, right? Because there is a contract. There's been lots of testimony through 2024. So you're not saying it's likely to be foreclosed prior to the expiration of that contract.
I'm not looking at prior to the contract expiration. And so my conclusion is really about all of Activision content and not taking a stance.
You don't have an opinion just about Call of Duty.
I notice it's the economic incentive, and there's reasons why firms as economists tend to act on their economic incentive, but it is difficult for the particular likelihood on complete foreclosure of Call of Duty.
One way or
More
the other,
likely.
you can't say.
It's more likely.
You can say.
No, it's more likely than without the merger to be foreclosed.
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty is more likely with the merger than without the merger.
But I see
Yeah,
comparatively,
Comparatively,
you're not prepared, at least your opinion, to say that it's with the merger likely to be more
for that
likely than not.
particular content, but overall Activision content likely. That Activision content. That's I understand.
No, I see. I understand.
Okay, so let's go back, put our chart up. And so we're just saying with the merger, Toronto was trying to ask you, and if you say you don't have an opinion, not comparing it to without, just after the merger is likely to be on PlayStation. Should we put a question mark there instead of a check?
I don't know what you would like to put there. I expressed my opinion.
So you can't tell us whether it's likely to be on, not certainty, but whether it's likely to be on PlayStation after the merger and post 2024.
I'm not expressing an opinion on that precise
All right, great. We'll use a question mark.
probability.
Question mark, and just say. For PC, it will be on after the merger, right?
Likely.
Okay. It will be on Nintendo, correct?
I noted in my report there is some uncertainty of the technical feasibility of bringing Call of Duty to Nintendo Switch. So I don't express opinion on probability, but I evaluate the competitive effects as if it's likely to be on Switch. So I account for that possibility that it will likely be on Switch as a result of the merger.
So does that mean I can check the box and say you think it's likely it will be subject? You're not saying the technical challenges will stop it from being from Nintendo, are you?
I'm saying there's evidence that it's uncertain, but for the purposes of evaluating or conducting my evaluation, I am treating it as it will be on or likely be on. Quebec. I'm not providing a economic opinion on the probability of that
Yeah.
happening.
There's a contract signed now between Microsoft, Xbox, and Nintendo to put it on Nintendo, correct?
Correct.
But in this box, you want me to put question mark because you're not opining on it.
I'm not putting, but I am in my analysis.
No,
Evaluate
He's
it's likely.
saying it is
Yeah,
likely.
it's likely. It's likely.
It is likely, so we can check the box. Okay. And how about in Xbox Game Pass?
With the merger,
Yes.
likely.
Likely. Okay. And I'm not sure I made this clear, but it's not on Game Pass.
No, that's not my understanding.
And after the merger, will it likely be streamed on GeForce?
My understanding, likely, yes.
Okay.
Likely.
And will it likely be streamed on Boosteroid?
Yes.
On Ubitus?
Yes.
And where?
Yes.
And EE, right?
My understanding that,
Okay. Now, we can pick any date you want. Let's say we have a break date on July 18th. So why don't we pick July 19th? Okay. So there's no merger on July 18th.
okay.
And it will, do you believe it'll still be on Xbox? Merger doesn't go.
Yes.
Do you believe it is likely to be on PlayStation?
Yes.
Do you believe it'll be likely to be on PC?
Yes.
Do you believe it's likely it'll be on Nintendo?
Uncertain.
That's a question. Okay. What about on Xbox Game Pass?
Uncertain.
GeForce?
Welcome to Jingles' shop. These may
I
not
think
look
for the
like much,
rest-
they are all-
I'm meant to believe.
Mutual trust is we went our separate ways.
Can I explain my analysis? But it's uncertain. But there are reasons to suggest it might be more likely.
So for the rest
Some
of
of them.
these streaming services we've been discussing, we should put a question mark in the rest of those.
Thank you for your
If you would
business.
like to.
We're trying to reflect your answer. So
Uncertain.
we'll do- that's what I want.
Okay. Any redirect?
Good afternoon, Dr. Lee. Professor Lee, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon.
So, counsel for Microsoft was just discussing your analysis of Call of Duty content, in particular, with regards to the likelihood of foreclosure. Why did you analyze all Activision content?
I think it's important to understand that Activision produces many games, or I'm sure Your Honor knows that, and that all Activision content can be valuable and meaningful for competition. There can be future games that are developed, and also there is non-Call of Duty content that is popular on consoles. As well, for subscription services and cloud streaming services, there's evidence that catalog content and content that's not just Call of Duty is also meaningful for the competitiveness of one of those services. And so I think it's important to expand the analysis to look beyond current content, that is catalog content that was released a few months or a year prior, and other content that Activision produces as well as could produce in the future.
But there are a lot of popular games, not just Activision, right? And there's no way of predicting what's going to be the popular game.
It's difficult.
Are you suggesting then that whether it be Sony, because we would be here if it was Sony acquiring Activision as well, no question, right? That any purchase of a publisher then is going to have anti-competitive effects because they always have an incentive then to make it exclusive? Or is this particular to Activision? And if it's particular to Activision, I think it's pretty clear it's driven by Call of Duty, which is a unicorn, right? It's a unicorn in the durability and the popularity and the numbers. It certainly stands out separately. You were here for Mr. Ryan's testimony, and that's made it clear that that's their concern is Call of Duty. So I don't quite understand what you're saying.
Oh, okay, I apologize. I think it's true that Call of Duty is very, very important to the competitiveness of. It's like you said, a unicorn. It's differentiated. I do think, though, that the supply of new content, there's evidence that it's scarce. These AAA games don't come out that frequently. So let's put Call of Duty aside. It's not the case that there are many other replacements for Activision content, not just restricted to Call of Duty. If, for example, entrant or smaller streaming services might very well benefit from having access to more content that's provided by Activision, as opposed to not having access to it at all if it were proposed to them.
Okay, but I guess I'm still trying to say when you analyzed it that all of Activision's content, why didn't you analyze Call of Duty separately as to whether it was likely or the incentive to make that exclusive, or that you don't have an opinion? I guess I should say.
So my economic opinion is that the merged entity has a likely economic incentive to foreclose Call of Duty, as well as other Activision titles. And I note that economists think firms tend to act in their economic interest, but there is some uncertainty in the future. And so the proposed transaction to necessarily likely lead to foreclosure. I'm allowing for the possibility it doesn't necessarily take the form, let's say, full foreclosure or full exclusivity with respect to Call of Duty. The analysis also applies to these other pieces of content, which I think can still meaningfully affect.
Like what?
consumers.
Give me an example, because there's so much content there. I mean, that's what I'm
Sure,
trying to figure out. I mean, this is all the testimony has been about Call of Duty in this case. That's what it is, Call of Duty.
I think there's another game, for example, that Activision released called Diablo, where my understanding did very well. That was released a few weeks ago. That's an Activision title. They have, with my understanding, catalog content and other franchises. I think. I think there's a game, Tony Hawk, is my understanding. Other games, I don't want to recall the names, but there's evidence that it's the catalog of even older Call of Duty content is important as well for these streaming services. I think
For the streaming, so you're,
for streaming and
or are you
cloud
talking
streaming.
about the subscription services or the cloud?
Both. I'm sorry, my language is imprecise. Subscription services and cloud streaming services.
Okay, so when you're talking about all the Activision, you're now really talking about the cloud and the streaming as opposed to the console, right? When we're talking about console and you were talking about your vertical foreclosure theory, you're really talking about Call of Duty driving people to change or purchase an Xbox. But what you're saying is when you're talking about the cloud or the subscription services, you're saying it's the catalog.
The catalog as well. I do note with like a title like Diablo, it can have an effect on console sales. It can affect consumer demand. And so a title like Diablo was removed from PlayStation. It can still harm consumers, and I have a quantification of that. It's not going to be as large as removing Call of Duty, but if Diablo is removed, or a title like Diablo is removed from Sony PlayStation, consumers there, absent other benefits, would generally be harmed because they just have less content available to them. The product they bought is worse.
Well, if it becomes exclusive.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So even in the
I'm about to
console
say
market,
this shit is a joke.
current content, if
I'm
it's taken
sorry.
exclusive, can harm consumers if there aren't offsetting benefits.
But if something is in a subscription service versus not in a subscription service, doesn't that benefit consumers?
It can. I think in the subscription service market, my economic opinion is that it's more likely rivals to Game Pass will be foreclosed from Activision content. So a company like PlayStation Plus may be less likely because of the merger to be able to get access to Activision
Do
content.
you have an opinion as to whether PlayStation Plus has actually tried to get access to certain games, or whether it has the same even business model or goals as XPass? And I'm just thinking about some of the testimony we heard from Mr. Ron. I mean, right? Do you take that into account?
I do. My recollection with the testimony of Mr. Ryan, I think back to it, he was mentioning they focused on catalog content. He wasn't looking for day and date or new releases. And I provide some evidence in my direct testimony that Game Pass, most usage is on games that are released more than 6 months ago. I think the majority of game time is on older catalog content. And so that supports the idea that streaming services, subscription services, do kind of depend on the whole catalog and not just new releases to attract consumers.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
No worries. And Professor Lee, we've talked about something called partial foreclosure today. What is partial foreclosure?
Partial foreclosure is a term that generally refers to strategies that are also referred to partial exclusivity, so timed exclusives, exclusive add-on content, or content that might be not optimized or degraded relative to another version.
So is partial foreclosure solely purposefully degrading content?
I know, as I mentioned, there are other forms of partial foreclosure, and it's important to remember, like, it's a comparison to what would have happened but for that action, right? So partially foreclosed could be there would have been equal versions produced on two consoles, but in the other world, there's still two versions, but just one is just not as optimized or doesn't have all the same features as the other.
And has Microsoft acknowledged, have you seen evidence or have you considered evidence of Microsoft acknowledging the benefits of such partial foreclosure?
I've seen evidence that Microsoft does, for example, engage in timed exclusives, for example, with regard to subscription services. And, yeah.
And to tie all together, Professor Lee, what evidence have you seen regarding the likelihood that the merged entity will engage in partial foreclosure, or is likely to engage in partial foreclosure if this transaction goes through?
I think it's important to note that, although most of my quantitative analysis focuses on total foreclosure, that is the form of exclusivity that is, it tends to be most often seen in this industry. Most of Microsoft first-party titles are fully exclusive, and that the economic incentives for full and partial exclusivity are very similar, right? They both have the core economic incentive of trying to steer consumers away from rivals to one's own console or subscription service.
And so do you think that partial foreclosure can harm consumers?
Like exclusivity, it can be both pro and anti-competitive and have similar effects.
So, sorry, to put it, to ask a better question, do you think that if partial foreclosure could affect competition?
Yes.
I want to turn back to something Microsoft's counsel discussed with you a bit earlier in her cross-examination, and just ask you directly, Professor Lee, can you explain why you exclude PCs from your console markets?
Yes. So the economic framework I use to support my antitrust product markets is the hypothetical monopolist test. It asks, for a set of products, if one firm owned those products, would it properly implement a small but significant increase in price, like a 5% price increase? And the question is, is there enough substitution outside the market so that the monopolist wouldn't want to do that? And I provide evidence in my report, in my testimony, that indicates PC would not constrain such a monopolist from increasing prices on all video game consoles or on Gen 9 consoles.
And is this still the case, given that you can, as you discussed, play Call of Duty on an Xbox or a PC?
That's right. The question here is, for example, would a price increase lead so many consumers to switch away from a PlayStation or an Xbox console?
You know what, maybe I didn't understand, but when you were talking about the vertical foreclosure theory and you had your Venn diagram, you excluded from that people who played Call of Duty on the PC. You excluded them from those who might convert to the Xbox. To the Xbox for Call of Duty. Why doesn't that suggest that playing on the PC is then a substitute for the console? If making Call of Duty exclusive to the Xbox wasn't enough to make them migrate by the Xbox?
That's a good question, Your Honor. So in my vertical foreclosure model, I look at these folks who might own a PlayStation and a PC, and I note that some of the PC users, they may not want to play on the PC. It's not a similar experience to playing on the console, and so there's still some folk who own a PC and a PlayStation who can buy an Xbox. But I still admit that there are some folk who would choose to play on the PC. Now, that form of substitution where I play a game is different than asking the question, if I'm a customer who would have bought an Xbox or a PlayStation and they got more expensive, would I go out and buy a brand new gaming PC? Right? Gaming PCs, they're multi-purpose. They can be $1,500, whereas these consoles are $500. So if a consumer who saw a PlayStation go up by $25, are they more likely to buy an Xbox or buy a brand new gaming PC?
But a gaming PC you can do other things with, whereas the Xbox, there's only one thing you can do with.
Absolutely. And in that sense, PCs are differentiated significantly from consoles. They're multi-purpose devices, right? So that's what that hypothetical monopolist test is sort of asking the question. For the consumer who would have bought a console and the consoles got more expensive, where are they substituting? Are they going to substitute to PCs? Or are they probably more likely going to substitute within video game consoles?
Okay. I guess why wouldn't they substitute to a PC in which they get so much more value out of it? Like they can play their games, but they can also then get $1,000 worth of everything else that we mostly do with our PCs.
Well, I think there are some consumers who might choose to do that. I think, like in my testimony and my reports, I provide evidence that, PlayStation and Xbox benchmark their pricing against each other. What that means is, like, if one of them increases the price, the other considers matching the price. And if a lot of the customers are buying PCs, it's not clear why the PlayStation price is the only relevant consideration or the most relevant consideration for the Xbox price. Does that make sense?
Okay, I see what you're saying. And then let me ask you, because the Xbox, is it the Xbox S? Has the price similar to the Nintendo Switch?
Yes, the S is the lower price console.
That suggests that it's, it seems to me the obvious inference is that was done to compete with the Switch.
That's right. There's the Series X and the PlayStation 5, and the S is still in that market. So if you're thinking about like a price increase, think about a price increase on the X. Who are the customers who buy the X console? Are they more likely to switch to the PlayStation 5 or to a Switch? Right. So this exercise of market definition, you can evaluate a price increase on any of the products in the market. This hypothetical monopolist who owns all the Gen 9 consoles, it doesn't have to increase the price just on the S. It can choose to exercise the price increase on the PlayStation 5 or the X.
Because those people will stick to it. And how do you determine which are those? Like, they're the people who play how many hours a day versus, I'm just wondering, you're the economist. I'm just a judge. Like, how do we even know?
Right? There's a lot of qualitative and quantitative evidence one can look at that informs the extent to which consumers substitute between these products. I just mentioned one piece of evidence is evidence that these firms benchmark each other for pricing. That's pretty strong evidence that they see each other as this closest price constraints on one another. There's more sophisticated, like a little bit more sophisticated economic modeling. You can sort of compute, well, if PlayStation increased the price, what's the minimum percent of folk who have to go to an Xbox so a price increase would be profitable? And I compute that number and provide evidence like, well, as long as more than about 10 or 15% of folk who leave an Xbox and would go to a PlayStation or vice versa, a hypothetical monopolist who owned all those consoles, Gen 9 consoles, would find a 5% price increase likely profitable.
Just one more point about PC gaming, Professor Lee. Is your understanding that the PC games are, many times played on the Windows operating system?
It's my understanding that many PC games are on Windows.
Is Windows operating system, is that a Microsoft product?
It's my understanding Windows is a Microsoft product.
So for those gamers you were talking about that might go to PC versus buy an Xbox, does Microsoft benefit at all from that switch?
They may still benefit if they purchase a Windows PC.
I want to talk about your share model a little bit, and as Microsoft's counsel spoke with you extensively about, you use Generation 8 data in your share model. Can you please explain why you use Generation 8 data in that share model?
Sure. So the share model is trying to look at the impact of new exclusive titles, or the impact of exclusive titles on hardware sales. And for that kind of exercise, it's useful to have a long period of data. So Gen 9 I had from 2013 to 2020. Gen 8 I had 2013 to 2020. Gen 9, less data to work with. Also, Gen 9, there were well-documented supply shortages on consoles. So if there's something like a supply shortage affecting sales of consoles, it's going to be difficult to really tease out the relationship between software and hardware sales. And for those reasons, I use Gen 8 data to inform the likely effects of exclusivity on hardware sales.
And then for your vertical foreclosure model, you then consider Gen 9 data. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's correct.
So why do you use Gen 9 data in your vertical foreclosure model?
The role of the vertical foreclosure model is to look at the economic incentives for the merged firm to engage in foreclosure in the future. And so it used projections of Activision sales going forward.
And I'm actually going to point you to a demonstrative, which we've been asked to hold confidential. So I will just point into it, Your Honor, and we'll ask questions around it. Professor Lee, please turn to demonstrative number 11. It's on page 11 of the demonstratives. Just let me know when you're there.
I'm on that page.
And can you generally describe for Her Honor what this demonstrative represents?
Sure. Your Honor, on slide 11 is output from the share model. What it's doing is plotting for a set of AAA titles during Generation 8. On the vertical axis, what is the predicted change in Xbox shares from taking that title exclusive? And you'll see that for many of those dots, they're kind of below us. Are all the numbers under seal?
I defer to you. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So apologies. We'll have to be a little vague here.
So you'll see the numbers, and that's the predicted share shift for taking many of those titles exclusive. And you'll see for a lot of the AAA titles, most of them are kind of within or below the range we were talking about before for US share shifts. What you'll also see on this chart are these red dots. And those are titles that are part of the Call of Duty franchise. And you'll note that those red dots have a much higher predicted change in Xbox shares if they're taken exclusive. And that's because they're sort of higher on the graph. They're more towards the top of the graph. You might ask, well, why is that the case? Well, if you also look on the horizontal part, you'll see that those Call of Duty titles sell many more units than many of the other blue dots, right? And so the share model is predicting that, well, titles that have greater sales, they're more popular, more users play those games, are predicted to have a bigger impact on the shares of hardware consoles.
And if you could briefly flip to the previous slide in your demonstrative, I believe this one is also confidential, so we'll have to speak around it a little bit. But do you see the quote on the slide?
I do.
And these. Oh, it's not? Oh, okay. Apologies. It's not confidential, so we can put it on the screen. And so it reads, an exclusive AAA release accounts for a 2 to 4% console share shift in the US and a 1 to 3% shift worldwide. First, are those similar numbers to what you discussed with Microsoft's counsel in our cross-examination?
Yes, those numbers are what we discussed.
And are these numbers consistent with your modeling with regards to Call of Duty, given this page 11 that we just looked at?
Yes, page 10 talks about AAA releases in general, and page 11, when I describe the output of the share model, I note that most AAA titles in the set have predicted share shifts that are actually below or within that range.
So I guess to tie it together, to make it clear, how did you account for what we see on page 11 when determining share shift for Call of Duty, or estimating, share shift for Call of Duty?
Well, I note that on page 11 it says, the share model predicts titles with greater software sales have higher predicted shifts, and so that's why the share shift in my vertical foreclosure model for Call of Duty is a little higher than the range, the 2 to 4, the 1 to 3, 2 to 4% range. Call of Duty is a unicorn, very unique. So it's not surprising that the predicted share change from Call of Duty will be higher than the typical AAA title.
And did you look at a range of potential, we'll call it Call of Duty modifiers, onto these numbers that we've just discussed?
In my vertical foreclosure model, I use various conversion rates that correspond to different Call of Duty share shifts, sort of around that 5.5 percentage point number. But they're all numbers that are below the average that's predicted by my share model, which is the 8.9 percentage point number that I discussed earlier.
And generally, why do you look at all these different ranges?
I think it's important to try to sort of triangulate from many sources, my own independent quantitative analysis, this share model, as well as the survey evidence we discussed before, which I can talk a little bit more about if helpful to your honor.
That the survey that you didn't read?
Well, it's a survey that...
Different survey.
It's a survey that I had a sample from the slide.
You had this. Did you have the underlying survey or just the slides that someone prepared summarizing what that person thought the survey said?
I had other documents
About the survey.
About the survey. That's
Not
right.
just the slides.
No, I did not have this. I had other documents I read. And if you look at the slides, if you still have it, RX 5053-010. And this is exactly how I use the survey information. Interpret it as, if you'll note on this slide, and is this under seal? Do I have to talk around this?
What page are you looking at?
010, 5053-010.
It is or is not?
RX 5053?
Yes.
Yes, that slide is public.
And so you'll note this slide, it says It's more informative as to how the withholding of COD would impact Sony. And it actually has this diagram of all potential folk who would purchase a PlayStation at their next major console purchase. The number there is 5.3%. I will note 2 slides earlier, Your Honor. It talks about how this sample of this number is about all PS gamers, not just those who list Call of Duty as their favorite game. And this 5.3%, I will point out, again, is coming from users in Europe where Call of Duty is less popular. My conversion rate of 20% corresponds to 5% of all PlayStation users purchasing a new Xbox, which is consistent with this number, and also is meant to be from a global population where Call of Duty might be more popular than in Europe.
Was the number of gamers surveyed statistically significant? Or you don't know?
I can't answer that question.
So we don't know because you haven't seen the underlying survey data. I mean, you know that. You're a scientist. You're esteemed, right? And usually you would need to know. You would need to know what the underlying statistics were before you can draw some conclusion from it, right? I mean, if you can't tell me if that's statistic, I understand. This is what Microsoft posited
has represented. So
I get that. And if you want to say, well, it's an admission, therefore, then that's fine. Then
Your Honor,
it's an admission, right?
Your Honor, I take that point. So that's why I'm presenting other evidence. This is one of many pieces of evidence I present. And my share model, I note, predicts, results that are consistent with documentary evidence.
Right. Okay.
And the survey is additional support, but
because this is what Microsoft said, but you don't even know if it was statistically significant.
I'm using Microsoft representation, saying it's consistent, but relying on other pieces of evidence. Correct.
I want to pivot a bit from consoles, which I think we've been talking about a lot, to content library subscription services. And just generally, Professor Lee, can you explain the evidence that supports your conclusion that the merged entity would likely foreclose Activision content in the content library subscription services market?
So, my conclusion is it would be more likely because of the merger than absent the merger to engage in foreclosure of Activision content in content library services and cloud streaming services. And that comes from a few sources of evidence analysis. One is that I conclude the merged entity would have a greater economic incentive to engage in foreclosure. And this is for the reasons we've discussed already. Foreclosure, taking content exclusive, tends to steer consumers away from rival products to your own. And Microsoft earns profits from the sale of its services. As well as documentary evidence that exclusivity in subscription service and cloud streaming is a practice that Microsoft engages in. And there are documents expressing a tendency not to supply rivals in these markets with its own first-party content.
And I know you talked about this earlier with Microsoft's counsel, but can you explain for Her Honor why you didn't do a quantitative model as part of your analysis with regards to content library subscription services?
As I noted earlier, there's this other evidence that suggests Microsoft has an incentive to continue foreclosing rivals. In many of their deal analyses, they don't incorporate supplying content to rival subscription or streaming services. That's just a practice that I've seen that could be the case. In terms of my economic conclusion that it will be more likely to supply rivals in these markets, it comes from the conclusion that it just has a greater incentive to do so. Activision has a greater incentive to supply rivals, but for the merger than with the merger.
be clear, I have a similar question for you for cloud gaming services. Could you describe, explain the evidence that supports your conclusion that the merged entity would likely foreclose Activision content in cloud gaming services?
So it would have a likely economic incentive to foreclosing cloud gaming services for some of the reasons I described before. There's document evidence that Microsoft has a desire to keep its first-party content off rival cloud streaming services and continue engaging in that practice.
Sorry, Dr. Lee, Professor Lee, to stop in the middle of the cloud gaming services question, but I want to make sure that Her Honor understands the point about quantitative modeling with regards to content library subscription services. So I understand that you analyzed a lot of different evidence, but why in particular was doing a quantitative analysis in the content library services market, not something you performed in this matter?
Well, I think it's a newer market, and the data wasn't as, and these types of quantitative analysis oftentimes require historical data, a longer data, where we have the constant variation in software availability and hardware sales over time. Content, and particularly cloud, it's a nascent market.
But cloud is very different from the subscription service.
They're different. They're both different, but they're both relatively nascent and new compared to consoles. And the lack of really good data for these services made it very difficult to perform something that I would view as reliable. This quantitative.
So just so I understand, for example, the Xbox 360, that's a Generation 7 console, right? So it came before Generation 8.
My understanding, that's right.
Is your understanding that Xbox Game Pass was available on Xbox 360?
It's not my understanding that the Game Pass was around back then.
Do you have an understanding of when Xbox Game Pass first released?
In the mid 2010s, about 16, I think. My recollection. I don't. That's the exact date. 17, perhaps.
That's right in the middle of Generation 8, then, right?
That's right.
So, I want to go back to cloud gaming. Sorry for.
Hey, can we go back to
yes, of course.
library subscription in terms of it being a separate market? Because it seems like it's just a different way to pay for the same games. I mean, you're paying for a game to pay on your console, right? But you're just paying a month. You're paying Netflix instead of going on Prime and paying for a single or wherever Apple and buying the movie itself. You're paying a monthly fee and you get to play that game. So why is it a different market as opposed to, because you're playing the game exactly the same way on the console, right? You just paid for it through a different way.
That's again a good question.
Oh, don't quit flattering me.
I'm not trying to flatter. It's a key question for defining this market, right? So how I've thought about it as an economist is, let's think about the products that offer cloud library services. And what is the value that they're providing to consumers? So I provide evidence that cloud library services provide discovery of new games you wouldn't have tried. You wouldn't have paid $70 to test something out. You get exposed to new games, a fresh library of content. Again, play more than you maybe would have if you only could try to play.
We can debate whether that's actually a positive or a negative.
It's something that consumers appear to value, right? They're subscribing to it. And so for that reason, the same hypothetical monopolist test I use for this market, like, let's look at all content library services. Maybe they charge $10 a month, $15 a month. And imagine one firm owned them all. Is it likely that they could increase prices by like 5%, by 50 cents or $1 per month? Because think about the value proposition they're offering, these content library services. Would people really move away from those services and start just buying a la carte games, it's maybe likely that the consumers who subscribe to these services really put value on what they're delivering. And it's really other content library services that consumers would substitute to. You use Netflix, think about video streaming services. If Netflix and all those other streaming services, raise their prices slightly, maybe $1 a month, would people start just buying movies or buying a la carte TV shows in response? Or would it maybe be more likely they would substitute to other subscription services?
It depends on the content.
It depends on the content for sure, but it also depends on those characteristics, like offering a library of content for a monthly subscription fee.
So, going to cloud gaming now. if you're on is ready to go with us. Great. So again, similar question as I had about content library subscription services, Dr. Lee. Can you just please explain the evidence that supports your opinion that the merged entity would likely engage in foreclosure of Activision content with regards to the cloud gaming services?
Sure, I discussed before. The likely economic incentive is supported by documentary evidence that reviews that Microsoft tends to or has expressed the incentive to withhold its first-party content from rival streaming services, from rival cloud streaming services.
When you say rival cloud streaming services, what just for our edification, what does that mean compared to content library services?
Sure. So I think this is actually a useful distinction where maybe some of the analysis get complicated, is that some of the products that offer content library services also offer cloud streaming services. So Game Pass Ultimate offers both content library and cloud streaming services. PlayStation Plus Premium also offers both too. And they're in some sense offering a bundle of these services. So my analysis, I look at a content library service market. I also look at a cloud streaming market. Now, what may be a little different is that Ultimate, Game Pass Ultimate and PlayStation Plus Premium are in both of those markets because they both offer both of those services. But the cloud streaming market also contains products that only have streaming, like GeForce Now, which is a bring your own game cloud streaming service and doesn't offer at the moment content library service.
I just want to maybe visualize this, call your attention to a few demonstratives. These are public. Pages 21, 22, and 23, a series of Venn diagrams. Professor Lee, does this represent your conclusions with regards to the content and cloud gaming services markets and the narrow markets that are also incorporated?
That's right. So starting on page 21, Your Honor.
Yeah, I have it.
That is the broader market. This is what I call the content and cloud gaming services market. It includes products that offer either cloud streaming or content library services for games that are primarily played on non-mobile devices. But as you'll see there, it's kind of a Venn diagram. At the intersection are those products that offer both content library and cloud streaming services. Now that's the broadest market. On the next two pages are the narrower markets. That's the content library services market, and that's the cloud gaming services market. And as I mentioned before, there are products that are in both of those markets because they offer both of those services.
And you mentioned before we move back to cloud, when we were initially discussing cloud gaming services, I think you mentioned nascency. Cloud gaming services are nascent. What did you mean by that?
So the word nascent, I'm using it as a term to refer to a relatively new market, one that's developing, one that is perhaps showing potential for growth, but there's uncertainty. And nascent markets just tend to have, again, greater uncertainty than more mature markets.
Does that and you touched on this, but just to put a pin on it, does that nascency make it more difficult to quantify the likelihood of harm in say the cloud gaming services market?
It does. Quantification, there's always inevitably uncertainty. When that uncertainty is exacerbated because of latency, it's going to be even harder. I will note that the nascency also affects the conclusions about harm. In nascent markets, the role that smaller players, that entrants have in competition could be greater than in markets that are more mature. And so if smaller players, if entrants are disadvantaged because they can't get access to content, then harm from foreclosure could be magnified in the future.
You talked about entrants, the nascent nature of the market, in fact, the amount of entrants that could enter.
So the cloud market has seen recent entry, also recent exit. It's different than the console market, and we've seen basically 3 players for quite a while now.
Have you seen evidence that the industry believes that there is a future in cloud gaming?
I note, again, it's uncertain, but there are industry projections that provide evidence of that cloud gaming is growing. It might be a very significant part of gaming going forward.
Just a few more questions. I want to turn to modeling now, which I will try to keep up with you here. But you talked about 2 inputs to your vertical foreclosure model, and one of them was LTV, or lifetime value. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
So what is your basis, for your conclusion that the LTV value for Call of Duty gamers would be more profitable, for Xbox than your average Xbox game?
Sure. So I looked at spending data on both Xbox and PlayStation, and they compared spending for all users, and they compared it to spending for people who play Call of Duty, and as well as other Activision content. And I found that for the average user who plays Call of Duty, understood.
They spend more.
They spend more, indeed. They do spend more. And that's consistent with other documentary evidence I've seen, where Microsoft had studied what the value of customers who join Xbox to play particular content. And that also found that consumers who join for content spend more. I think what's also interesting in my analysis is that consumers who actually play more Call of Duty, the ones who play more hours of Call of Duty, spend even more. And as an economist, when you think about the value that consumers get from a product, I think it typically is correlated with the time spent on that activity. So if a user spends 10 hours, 50 hours, 100 hours a month in Call of Duty, they're probably getting more value from it because they're looking at all the hours they spend in Call of Duty. And then if it's foreclosed, is it worth it to buy a $500 Xbox Series X, let's say? Right? And so the fact that gamers who spend more time in Call of Duty spend even more suggests that this LTV adjustment I use is perhaps conservative, that actually folks who come over to Xbox when Call of Duty is foreclosed would be even more valuable.
And in the virtual foreclosure model, I think you mentioned that there are some potential benefits to foreclosure that are not contained within that model, unmodeled benefits, so to speak. What are some examples of these unmodeled benefits, and how do they affect the analysis?
Of course. So the vertical foreclosure model focuses only on these users who are projected to have purchased Call of Duty in the future. Now, when titles are taken exclusive, and let's say Call of Duty is not on PlayStation, now it's on Xbox, it may be that beliefs of future consumers change, right? So consumers who may not have bought Call of Duty, but now think Xbox is where you want to go for great content, their decisions can be influenced. And that's going to bring even more profits to Microsoft from this foreclosure action. That's not in the vertical foreclosure model. As well, if you think that taking away Activision content from Sony reduces how much Sony earns on a user, it's less profitable to sell a console, right? Because Sony's not making money on activating content, let's say. Then Sony might have less of an incentive to subsidize a console. And that's going to put upward pressure on the prices of PlayStation consoles, and that could shift more sales to Xbox. As well as not accounting for the possibility that this foreclosure could enhance Microsoft's market power and ability to increase prices further. So these are all things that are outside of the vertical foreclosure model that represent additional benefits that potentially could accrue to the merged firm.
So say your vertical foreclosure model shows 100% recruitment, so break even. What's the practical implication of these unmodeled benefits on that percentage?
So the fact that the model doesn't account for that means that the recruitment could actually be below 100%, and that it would still be in the merged firm's economic interest to engage in foreclosure.
So it could be 91%, say 92%.
It could be lower than 100%. And there's evidence that these other benefits Microsoft recognized in documents, right? In other analyses of exclusivity, particularly with regards to the ZeniMax transaction, some of these unmodeled benefits were mentioned.
When you look at benefits, do you also look at potential detriments to going exclusive in terms of negative public reaction?
I did consider that, right? There are some other costs, let's say, that I considered. For example, I think one consideration is, well, maybe Call of Duty, it's multiplayer. And so maybe there's a benefit to having a wider user base play the game. These are called network effects, right? And, you know, as a matter of economics, it could be that these network effects are diminishing. So as long as you have a big enough group, maybe having more people on the game doesn't deliver that much more value. But I still was interested to see, is there evidence that suggests these network effects are so big that would be additional cost to taking the game exclusive? Well, I noted that, you know, there are popular multiplayer games on Xbox that are exclusive, right? And if you think that network effects are really important, really, really important, would that be enough to offset the benefits from exclusivity?
I guess my question was different.
Okay.
Because, and it's Call of Duty specific, because it has been around on these two platforms for a while. And I heard some people feel very strongly about the particular console that they use. And it's been suggested that there would be just reputational damage due to making it exclusive. And again, because we're talking about a franchise that's very unique. Did you take that into account?
I understood. I took into account. I just couldn't find evidence that gave me a good sense of how large the magnitude would be. I will note that my vertical foreclosure model, once you account for all the conservative inputs, predicts pretty substantial benefits, economic benefits, to taking it exclusive. So if there is a reputational hit, it would need to be fairly significant to kind of change the overall finding that it wouldn't be in the economic interest of the merged firm.
A couple final questions, Professor Lee. Ms. Wilkinson went through a chat with you towards the end of her cross about predicting the future. Is your analysis predicting precisely what will happen in the future?
No, it does not. As we discussed, the future. No, it does not. As we discussed, the future is uncertain. Both the but-for world and the world with the merger are uncertain. But that doesn't mean it's not possible to obtain economic conclusions about likely competitive effects. I think one of my conclusions is that foreclosure is more likely with the merger than but for the world. And when you have that relative comparison, it's possible to obtain conclusions of likely economic harm, right? If it's more likely an anti-competitive effect will happen, or it's more likely consumers will be harmed, right? Across various states of the world as we look out forward.
This is economic incentive you're considering here, right? Can you just explain the difference between economic incentive versus what will happen in the future?
That's right. I'm an economist. I'm focusing on the economic incentives of the firms, and firms tend to act on their economic incentives. But also, there's some uncertainty with cloud and content library services because of their nascency, right? And with cloud gaming, because there's that uncertainty, it may not be as it's very difficult to put a precise probability on, let's say Activision supporting or not supporting cloud streaming, but for the merger. But if cloud continues to grow, it continues to be a really attractive place for consumers to access games, and the gains from trade of seeing an independent Activision on a streaming service grows as well, then it becomes more likely that, but for the merger, we would see Activision content on streaming services.
That's purely because of objective economic incentives, right?
Exactly. If there are economic gains from trade and they grow large, it's in the economic interests of parties to come to an agreement.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, Your Honor. I'd just like to move in some exhibits.
Oh, sure.
RX 20, which is the agreement between Sony and Activision on Call of Duty. 2069. I'm not going to say all that, but they are because I think they're confidential. PX 1136. I believe we already moved in 5053 and 5054, which were the survey documents.
Yes.
We want to move in RX 2073, which is a Sony document, RX 2098, which is a Sony document.
Admitted. All right. Oh, you have some too? Sure.
Admit to. Apologies. So I'd like to admit PX 5000.
That's the report.
Yeah, it's his initial report.
I just have a question. Normally in federal court, we don't admit the underlying reports of the experts. Do you want those, and should we then include ours?
We'll include them all. It's a bench trial.
Okay, great, thanks.
And I'll note, Your Honor, there are quite a number of exhibits here, and it's really reflective of a lot of
These are the
evidence
exhibits
that-
attached to the declaration.
The declaration.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
discuss that later.
Okay. Thank you.
Since you are so powerful,
Okay, Professor Lee, you may step down.
Thank you.
a lot of our Ferguson
All right,
brothers have
it's 2:00 or almost. So why don't we take a 10-minute break and then we'll resume with your next witness. Is your next witness live or by video?
I'm going to check on the video
Sure.
on the breaker.
Okay.
Don't worry, Master Wu. I will intervene. I am counting on you.
All right. So pretty much at this point, let me give y'all a real quick commercial. Make sure y'all support and check out the website. All right. Appreciate that, man. Interesting findings right now, man. We got 10-minute break. They will be back in pretty much like 9 minutes. So, you seen that they talked about the survey pretty much, and then they went into more detail, fine-tuned detail on the vertical merger and what that pretty much means and entails with Call of Duty. The judge debunked the hell out of that exclusive joint. I like what she brought up Final Fantasy at the beginning of the course, because it's literally at this moment Final Fantasy that 7 remake is still not on Xbox, and that was last year. So you don't think, so I like how she came out and said you don't think that impact, the user base on Xbox, that a franchise that was once on their platform isn't there anymore since last year, and then y'all just released a new game as well. Man, massive. That was a blow. Yeah, Yeah, that was a blow right there, bro. I was sitting there like, that don't look too good, baby. You looking kind of shaky. Cause it was literally, and it goes to another thing too with cause they brought up Diablo 4 too. So I'm like, dang, you know what I'm saying? Was it a good idea for Microsoft? Even though I'm standing in positivity with this case, like I'm still on the positive side, saying that this is going to close through, and they're going to get approved for it because of the amount of potholes that this company have left, and Sony's just looking bad in my opinion. But you know what I'm saying, should Microsoft have waited to release Diablo 4 just a little bit longer, like I don't know, dropped it in like September or something? I don't know. I can leave that up to y'all to think on that one. Me personally, I'm on the fence about it because they definitely needed that boost of game and content going into the E3 or the Microsoft Direct. They needed that boost of confidence, especially with content coming to the platform. So could they have waited a couple months? I don't know, but Diablo definitely became a massive success. But the only thing that I think that kind of helped it, but I didn't hear anybody say it, is that Diablo is not just on Xbox; it's on multiple platforms. You get what I'm saying? So it's not like the situation with Final Fantasy where, yeah, we bought it and then we took it away. You get what I'm saying? We bought it and still delivered, and still delivered on multiple different platforms with no issues, no concerns, and people got to enjoy the content on their console of choice. So you can take that in consideration too with that argument with Diablo, but I just didn't hear nobody mention it while they was talking. So right now, this Fizz game, pretty good. You know what I'm saying? Just talking a little bit through the whole little situation. This Fizz game pretty decent. It ain't all that. It ain't nothing to like, oh my God, this is what generations are made of. But a little filler to pass in until I wait for Starfield to drop. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty good. But other than that, it seemed like it's still going good in Microsoft's favor, in my opinion, right now. Just to be honest with you, just looking how everything is going out and what the judge is saying, I'm glad that they let Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer speak before getting to this part, because it was a great lineup, because they actually got the opportunity to fully explain what Game Pass and xCloud was about, and you can see that those notes came in handy with her, with the judge herself speaking to the FTC regarding the impact of what cloud and xCloud and Game Pass has on the community, with fans in that is not just a exclusive feature that is going to take over gaming and it's just a dominant force. No, it's very niche. It's very niche. It's growing, but not at a rapid pace, and the impact won't be felt for cloud gaming for years to come. And that's even a possible. That's not even guaranteed. You get what I'm saying? That's all speculation, which she definitely highlighted in her argument or her discussion with the FTC. So it's looking good right now, man. I can't even front. I'm liking how it's going day 3. I want to see what Nintendo has to say, because I heard a lot of Nintendo conversations going on right now, especially regarding it being in the, I don't know what gen that Joker is in. The Switch is in. It's in the 8th or the 9th gen. I don't know, 7th. But it was a lot of conversation on, if Call of Duty even capable of running on their platform. So I want to see what Nintendo has to say, because I know that Nintendo is actually rooting for this merger to go through. but just hearing the conversations about their product and what they say, is it a hybrid or is it an actual console? You know what I'm saying? That's going to be one of those key moments, in my opinion. That one, and well, Stadia already went, Nvidia, and hopefully I get some good news on that, because I did happen to try to play Nvidia on the Xbox web browser. Even though you're able to do it, it's not there yet. You can see that is, I don't want to say like it's partially supported. I don't want to say half-assed, but it's just partially supported right now. So we got 10 minutes, a 10-minute break. So probably got like another 5 minutes. Let me know what y'all think.
Rayton is now more than a match for the elderly Cicero.
You said it's a video testimony. Well, if it's on the stream, I'll...
Real quick, shameless plug. The background music that you hear in the back is made from your soulful boy right here, Mello. I got tired of having like dead background noise and getting hit with copyright, so I went out here and generated my own background music called Space Age Music. You know, so I made a channel for it. Go check it out. Hope y'all like it. So, you know, a little elevated music, something that'll keep you, you know what I'm saying, moving and grooving. I'm thinking about doing some more. It's kind of dope actually creating this stuff. So I'm thinking about doing like an hour long one, and then uploading that one too. I'm gonna do a different artwork for it too. I got matter of fact, can I show you the artwork? Let me see. I want to pop the artwork up real quick. I had a good time actually creating this. I ain't even gonna hold you. I don't see it up here. They ain't gonna let me upload my artwork, but yeah, anyway. But definitely check us out. Man, we had a great show yesterday on State of Gaming. You know what I'm saying? Hold on, do that real quick. Definitely check out what we doing over there on State of Gaming. Me, Post, Noah, we doing our thing. We're gonna definitely deep dive into this FTC situation with Post. He gonna, you know, put his strong arm of the law back. Oh, hold on, I'm supposed to be getting my mic soon. Opinion on what's going on and breaking it down for the crew. Cause right now, man, they need to hurry up and push this through, man, so we can go ahead and keep enjoying these games, and we can get ready for the future. Cause right now these ponies, they worried, man. Sony said they coming for them, and this is only a stepping stone. They ain't even got the real brunt of what's finna go down. I was trying to say also on the show, low key, I think Sony is going to try to combat this with some form of some news, and it's most likely going to be some type of exclusive deal. They gonna throw the purse. I mean the whole entire purse at Take-Two for Grand Theft Auto. I mean Rockstar for Grand Theft Auto 6 exclusiveness. I'm throwing a Hail Mary out there. I promise you, sound crazy right now. It don't make any sense. Why would Grand Theft Auto do that when they can make billions for this game? Something just has me like thinking, like, you know what I'm saying, that might be the move. They gotta come with something massive, something major, and Spider-Man ain't gonna cut it. Spider-Man is not gonna cut it on this one. So I think they got something in cooking. Now what it is, I think it's Grand Theft Auto 6, especially looking at we supposed to have got some form of announcement, but we never did around E3 time. I think we should have, but we didn't get it. So I don't know yet. I don't know. But we'll see. Let me see if they talking real quick.
Ready to call your next
There we
witness.
Oh,
We are, Your
they
Honor.
up.
We have a
I'm out.
9-minute video featuring Mr. Eisler of NVIDIA. And then we don't want to make any mistakes with the NVIDIA confidential info. So I believe defendants will be ready to call their expert, Dr. Bailey. And then we can do Mr. Fisher at the end of the day or tomorrow.
Great. Okay. We will watch the video then of Mr. Eisler's deposition.
Mr. Eisler, GeForce Now is NVIDIA's cloud gaming service, correct?
That's correct.
And GeForce Now offers an alternative to downloading and playing PC games locally. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I appreciate that, G.
Has NVIDIA ever compared the quality of cloud gaming on GeForce Now to the quality of downloading and playing games locally?
We do compare that, yes.
And what have you found?
We've found over time that we get closer and closer to the quality of playing locally.
And how does GeForce Now compare to consoles?
Oh, real quick, this is
What are the
GeForce.
benefits?
This is NVIDIA.
Our cloud gaming servers are more powerful than consoles, so we're able to run higher resolutions, higher frame rates, and add more digital effects.
And did NVIDIA do something called a Pepsi challenge at CES?
In our press suite, we did compare local gaming to GeForce Now gaming, yes.
So your goal was to convince press and gamers that playing on GeForce Now was as good as playing locally. Is that correct?
Yeah, at least on a moderate to low end PC, yes.
And did you prove that?
Yes, I think generally most of the press agreed that they couldn't tell the difference on the particular game and setup that we had arranged for them.
And when cloud gaming was first introduced, were there concerns about latency?
I would say that it's been a concern about cloud gaming since pretty much the beginning, yes.
And what feedback have you received related to latency on GeForce Now?
I mean, the early cloud gaming systems had quite high latency, probably in the 200 millisecond range. And so it was quite laggy, if you will, for gamers. And so gamers were kind of turned off by that. NVIDIA in particular has focused a lot on it because we're very gamer focused. And so we have reduced it now down below 100 milliseconds and made it enjoyable for the majority of gamers.
Mr. Eisler, you said NVIDIA has focused a lot on latency. What work have you done focusing on latency?
Well, one way is we've improved the frame rate. So originally it was 30 frames per second, and then we increased it to 60, and then 120, and now up to 240. So we've by doing that, we shrink the game engine time. That's one thing we've done. Second thing we've done is we've opened a lot of data centers. So we now have over 30 data centers, so we can be closer to more of our gamers, reducing the transit time to the data center and back. And then we have another technology called reflex technology, where we tune the game itself to reduce the time between the CPU and the GPU to further reduce latency. So we've attacked it in several ways.
I'd like to show you a document that has been pre-marked PX3144. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
It's the profit and loss statement calculated by finance for the cloud gaming business.
Mr. Eisler, GeForce Now started off with a free beta version in 2017, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Activision games were available on GeForce Now during the beta period. Is that correct?
We had a number of their games on the service during that time frame.
And did Activision agree to make their games available on GeForce Now?
We worked primarily through contact at Blizzard, which is part of Activision. And so they were definitely supportive of our games being there during the beta period.
And were Call of Duty titles available on GeForce Now during the beta period?
There were some titles on there, yes.
And when Call of Duty titles were on GeForce Now, were they popular?
Call of Duty is always quite popular, yes. So it was one of the more popular titles that I recall.
Did the popularity of Call of Duty vary over time?
Call of Duty popularity does tend to go up and down depending on where they are in their release cycles and what events they have going on. So its popularity does tend to go up and down.
I'd like to show you a document that has been pre-marked PX2391. For the record, PX2391 is a January 2020 email and an attached presentation from Phil Eisler to Brandon Zine and Chris Schnackenberg of Activision with the subject line, NVIDIA GFN update. Recognize this document?
I mean, it's a while ago now, but yes, I generally do, yes.
And what is it?
We if you're talking about the attached document, I mean, these are presentations that we create to try to encourage publishers to support their games on GeForce Now with, supporting data.
And after the commercial launch of GeForce Now in February of 2020, Microsoft acquired Bethesda, correct?
Yes, Microsoft did acquire Bethesda.
And what happened to the Bethesda titles that were on GeForce Now?
Microsoft asked us to remove them.
And Microsoft made its first-party games available on GeForce Now for the beta period. Is that correct?
We did have a few games, in particular Minecraft was quite popular back then.
And when GeForce Now transitioned to a commercial service, what happened with the Microsoft first-party titles?
They also asked that they be removed, and we removed them.
And did that include Minecraft?
That did include Minecraft.
I'd like to show you another document. This one is pre-marked PX1781. And this document appears to be the GeForce Now listing agreement that NVIDIA entered into with Microsoft. And this is the GeForce Now listing agreement that Microsoft and NVIDIA entered into in February of 2023. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I want to start by asking you about a document that's already been used in your deposition. It's been marked as PX1781. And if you could pull that up in your box and let me know when you're ready.
I have it now.
All right. And this is the GeForce Now listing agreement that we've been talking about for a good part of your testimony this morning and afternoon. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I want to ask you about a paragraph on the very first page of that document that you were actually asked about earlier today. It's the last full paragraph of that first page that starts, NVIDIA has responded. And let me know when you see that paragraph.
I see it.
Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did.
And was that a true statement on February 20th, 2023, when the agreement was first signed?
Yes, that's true.
And is that still true sitting here today in April of 2023?
Yes, that is still true. The agreement entitles us to the content provided the transaction completes on the Activision side, and we have already begun working with Microsoft to onboard their first-party titles. So we're confident that it will solve our concern there.
Now, earlier today, Ms. Callan asked you about a number of companies who asked for their games to be removed when GeForce Now switched from its beta phase to its commercial phase. Do you recall those questions?
I do.
Ms. Callan has some impact.
Okay, great.
Your Honor, I'd like to move to admit the exhibits used in Mr. Eisler's designations into evidence. That's PX8000, PX3103, PX3104, PX3144, PX3052, PX2391, PX1781, and I'll also move to admit the deposition transcript PX70.
All right, admitted. Okay, so now we're going to call witness out of order.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
That's right, Your Honor. Defendants call Dr. Elizabeth Bailey.
Dr. Bailey, if you could stop right there, and Ms. Means will swear you. You can be seated now. You may.
Good afternoon, Dr. Bailey. Could you please introduce yourself to Her Honor?
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Liz Bailey. I'm a PhD economist.
Are you ready to continue our day of economics here, Dr. Bailey?
I am.
What brings you to court today?
I was asked to consider some of the economic issues that have arisen in this matter.
And were you ultimately able to reach some opinions that you're prepared to offer to the court?
Yes, I was.
Well, before we offer those opinions, let's just do a little bit of background. Where did you go to school?
I did my undergraduate at Colgate University in upstate New York, and I did my PhD at MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
And do you teach, Dr. Bailey?
I have until recently, yes.
Where at?
I've taught at Arizona State University. I've taught at the University of California, Berkeley in the Haas School of Business. And most recently, I've taught executives at the Wharton School.
And have you published articles in the field of economics?
Yes, I have.
Where do you work today?
I work at Charles River Associates. I'm a vice president in the competition office.
What type of work do you do?
I provide economic analysis on a wide variety of mergers and acquisitions.
Dr. Bailey, turning your attention to this case, when did you first get retained?
About a year ago, roughly this time a year ago.
And are you being compensated for your work on this matter?
Charles River Associates is compensated at $1,200 an hour for my time.
Any aspect of your opinions tied to that compensation?
No, it's not.
One last question. This case is about video games. Do you play video games at all?
I play video games when my son asks me to play with him.
Dr. Bailey, do you feel that you had all the information you needed to reach the economic opinions in this case?
I do.
And we're going to show some slides today. Have you had a chance to review these slides before we came to court?
Yes, I have.
Anything in here that's not contained in your report?
No.
Well, could you give a brief overview of the types of information that you reviewed and coming to your opinions?
Sure. So I reviewed a wide variety of materials in this matter. One of the starting spots for me was telemetry data, and I had that available to me from Microsoft, from Activision, as well as from Sony. I reviewed a wide variety of third-party data sources. Do you mind if I?
Yes, I do. Can we turn on the monitor?
I reviewed a wide variety of third-party data sources, Nielsen data, a data source called Superdata, a third-party data source called Statista, which contained data on video game revenues, a data source called Metacritic that contained data on rankings and scores of video games, as well as I reviewed and used in my analyses internal data on finances and sales from both Microsoft and Activision.
And just for the record, a few of these slides are marked in camera, but I believe the ones that aren't, we could publish if that's okay, Ron.
Yes, you may. They're demonstrative.
Yes, and we'll be very cautious about that. Doctor, you mentioned a couple types of data that I just want to follow up on in particular. What is telemetry data?
Sure. So I think the simple way that I think about telemetry data is a log or record of the activity or the characteristics of the console.
Was that data anonymized before you looked at it?
It was. So it was anonymized. It didn't contain any PII, which is personally identified.
And just one other, there's a category on here called Nielsen Superdata. What is that?
Sure. So in this matter, one of the things that's been referred to by Dr. Lee and others are what are called AAA games. And I know I don't know, I guess I think about it a little bit like you know it when you see it. Like there's a lot of different views around what is a AAA game, but this was a data source that provided its rankings of what they viewed as AAA or AA. And so I use that as a way of kind of getting my arms around what people were talking about.
And beyond data, did you look at documents?
Yes, I did.
Were you ultimately able to reach some economic opinions in this case?
I did. I had 3 main opinions in this matter.
And were each of those opinions reached to a reasonable degree of certainty in your view?
Yes, they were.
And did you have sufficient facts and data to reach those opinions?
Yes, I did.
Let's walk through what those 3 opinions are.
Sure. So my first is that Call of Duty is not essential, critical, must-have, or uniquely important. And Your Honor, I heard the word unicorn this morning. If I had space to add another word, I would put unicorn in there. It's not a unicorn. My second is that Dr. Lee's markets are too narrow and don't align with market realities. And the third is that the transaction will expand the availability of applications.
And just to be clear, when you talk about Dr. Lee's markets, are you talking about products, geography, or both?
I'm talking about both.
Well, before we get into those specific things, it might be helpful to just take a step back and talk about gaming more generally. We've heard about console gaming, PC gaming, mobile. Did you look at any data to see how you could break down across those 3 different platforms?
I did. So there's essentially, I think about it as 3 sources of hardware on which gaming happens. And mobile is the largest. It's about 70%. What I'm showing here is global gaming revenue from 2021, and mobile gaming is nearly 150 billion, about 70%. And then lagging behind that is gaming on PCs at about 33 billion, and then console gaming at 28 billion.
And were you able to assess if these proportions between mobile, console, and PC have been changing over the years?
I did. I had this data over time. This is a snapshot for 1 year. And then what I do on this chart is that middle bar is the same data as the previous chart, and now I'm just showing it over time. So starting at 2017, then the 2021 data we saw before, moving forward to 2026. And mobile gaming is the fastest growing segment. All of the gaming is growing, but mobile is growing the fastest. So as a result, both PC gaming and console gaming are shrinking as a percentage.
And we've heard some testimony that part of Microsoft's motivation for this acquisition was getting a position in mobile. Were you able to form an assessment of Microsoft's current position in mobile gaming?
I had data available to do that.
And what did you find?
First, so on the left-hand side, on these pie charts, the one with all the dark blue, today Xbox is a very tiny sliver, less than 0.5% of mobile gaming revenue.
And how, if at all, will that change with the transaction?
Well, not very much, because Activision Blizzard is also very small in mobile gaming. So combined, they'll have a 3.8%.
Were you here in court for the testimony of Dr. Lee?
I was here.
And did you have a chance to review the written testimony?
I did.
Did he do any analysis of how this transaction will affect competition in the mobile market?
No, he did not.
How about in the PC segment?
I think largely no. He didn't include PC in the relevant product. I don't want to give it a flat no, because I did hear him talk about some of the reasons why he didn't include, but it wasn't a focus of.
We'll probably talk about this more later, but is it a point of disagreement between you and him as to whether PCs would be considered as part of the competitive assessment of this game?
I think so. The evidence that I've reviewed says PC is competitive.
But let's turn to console gaming, which I think where most of the focus was this morning. Did you do any analysis of the role that Activision's content plays in console gaming?
I did.
And what did you find?
So this is a chart from my report, and then turned into a pie chart on the left-hand side. And just kind of to orient, the pie chart just takes the wedges are the shares coming off the table, and the table on the right-hand side gives the ranking of the publisher, their global share of console gaming.
And where does Activision fall in the pie chart or in the list?
So Activision's fifth on the list with a 7.4% share of console gaming.
The door is locked.
Of all of Activision's revenues here comes from Call of Duty.
No, they don't all come from Call of Duty. Activision has other video game content.
Where does Xbox Game Studios fall? So
they're the second yellow bar. They're 8th on this list with a 4.9% share.
And just to be clear, in your assessment of Xbox, are you including the Bethesda studio you heard about?
Yes, that's included.
And just one last, Doctor, where does Sony fall in this chart?
Sure. So Sony's right one step higher than Activision. They're at number 4 with the 7.5.
And what does this analysis of global console share tell you about Activision's content?
Well, for me, as in one of the things that Dr. Lee focused on was the uniqueness or the importance of Activision Blizzard, and so this was a very useful starting point for me to get my arms around that question of was there something unique and special about the way it's positioned in console gaming revenues. And you know, when I look at this pie chart, there are 4 other larger publishers above Activision. It's obviously not the end of the analysis, but it was where I started, and I found it an informative starting point.
Doctor, I noticed at the very bottom, a little hard to see on the monitor, there's a category of all other publishers. I think it has over 3,900. You see that?
I do.
Or over 3.9 billion in revenue. What does that tell you about the industry, whether it's concentrated or not?
Well, it's quite unconcentrated. That all others is very fragmented. I mean, this list already is fragmented, but that group of all others is a very long tail of other console gaming publishers.
I see that this is a chart based on global data, and I think we'll come back to that. But did you look at any other slices of this published data as well?
I did. I mean, really, I was trying to get my arms around the perspective that Dr. Lee had. And so what's on this slide is Dr. Lee focuses on the United States. And so I looked at that as well.
What did you find?
So what I've done here is really just it's the first chunk that says global here, the first boxes. I'm just porting over from the previous slide so we have a point of comparison. Those are the same percentages we just talked about in the top set of boxes. The middle set of boxes, those are the same shares if we do that same analysis on the previous chart, but now just limited to the United States. And the shares go up a little bit, but it's not dramatically different. And then the last box, I mentioned the AAA when we were talking about the Nielsen Super data. And this is what the shares look like if you further subset the game publishing revenue to the United States and then add the further limitation of the game has to be a AAA game. And it's not very deep.
Could you tell the court what the set of numbers tells you as an economist about Activision's content?
Well, as a starting point, it tells me that it raises a good question in my mind, whether there's something unique or special or must have or unicorn-ish about Activision.
Before we get to that, Doctor, I want to talk about this global versus US issue. Did you come to an opinion as to whether the market is properly limited in the United States, as Dr. Lee says?
I did. I disagree with that.
And how did you come to that?
So I looked at a wide variety of evidence, and all of those items that I looked at, both the data and the documents and testimony, all pointed in that same direction.
Was one of the first things you looked at the actual products themselves?
It was. So when I look at the products, one of the features that jumped out at me is that it is the same products and the same brand, and it's even the same devices that are sold around the world. They're not different devices and different brands and different products in the US versus other places. It's the same, and that was an informative starting point for me.
So these four devices we have here, the PlayStation, 2 Xbox, and the Switch, same here as abroad?
Yeah, I mean, maybe subject to the different plug to plug into the socket, but it's the same.
Did you also look at the release dates for these consoles?
I did. So not only is it the same products and the same brands and the same devices, but those console devices are released on the same day in the United States as the rest of the world. That's what this slide here shows, and I've highlighted in green when the dates are the same, and you can see they're all green. The release dates are the same. So from an economic perspective, what it tells me is that nexus of where competition is happening is it's happening certainly at a level that's broader than the United States, where those sort of production and marketing and development decisions get made, that it's a decision that goes beyond the United States.
Did you stop at looking at consoles, or did you also look at the games that you play on now?
Correct. So games go with consoles. So I also looked at the games.
And what did you find when you looked at that?
Well, I found the same thing. So what this chart is showing is for Xbox, it's the top 10 popular games by playtime. And what I'm showing is the release date in the United States compared to the release date in the rest of the world, in a country in the rest of the world. And just like the console chart, what I've done is highlighted in green where the dates are the same. And you can see for all of the top 10 games, the release date is the same.
Did this analysis carry on past just the top 10?
Oh, yes. So in my report, I have many, many, many more games. And nearly all of them were also the same list.
Did you do a similar analysis on PlayStation?
I did.
What did you find there?
I found the same thing. These are the top 10 games by playtime on PlayStation, and the release date is the same in the United States as the rest of the world. They're all green.
And what did you take away as an economist from the same release that's being games in the United States?
Right. As an economist, what it does is reinforce the perspective that the nexus of competition, where that competitive activity is happening, is at a level that's broader than the United States.
Doctor, did you look at whether any of these games can actually be played across country?
I did.
What did you find?
So there are many console games that have cross-regional or global play, and these are multiplayer games where you play with other players. And so not only are there games where you have the ability to do that, but I also had telemetry data available to me where I could actually look to see how important it was.
Before we get to that, why does it matter that the games play across the world?
But it helps reinforce why the nexus of competitive activity is global, not limited to the United States. The games are more enjoyable to play when you are matched with players with similar skills as you have. And so that ability to have a broader set of players, it matters. It matters for the enjoyability of those games.
I think the next few slides are in camera, so we could stick out the public monitor. Thank you so much. Doctor, you just talked about whether the games can be played across regions. Did you do any analysis of whether they actually are played across regions?
I did do that, yes.
And without getting into specific numbers, what did you find?
So as I mentioned, I have telemetry data available to me from...
What does telemetry data mean?
Yeah, so telemetry data, I think about it as a log of the activity that's happening on a console or the activity that's happening on a game. So you could imagine, like at the extreme, like you could track every keystroke that's happening. But that's not what I have. What I have is like when you first turned on your console, when you first bought your console, or how long you played a game. That's what I have.
And how do you get that?
Boy.
But from Microsoft.
Yes, I asked for it from Microsoft.
But you don't have it from PlayStation, but you have.
I do have it from PlayStation.
Did you ask?
Because I asked.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So I have it from Microsoft, from PlayStation, and I have it from Activision. I think we'll talk about all of that today.
Dr. Bailey, before we get into that, are you aware whether Dr. Lee had access to that data as well?
He did.
What did you find looking at the telemetry data about frequency with which games are played across the globe as well?
So there's actually so let me do it. So see the box on the slide. That percentage that's shown there is for the game Call of Duty Modern Warfare. That's the percentages of North American lobbies that had players from other regions around the world. And a lobby is the group of players who are playing a game together. So what this percentage is the percentages of groups of players that were playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare that had players from regions outside of North America. North America plus players from other regions. It's a substantial percentage.
What does that tell you?
Well, it reinforces why that nexus of competition and where competitive decisions get made are global, not local or limited to the United States, because the game is more enjoyable, because the gamers are playing across regions. It makes sense that those competitive decisions are being made far broader than the United States.
Doctor, did you do any further analysis on this geographic issue?
I did.
Did you tell the court what you did?
Sure. So I did a number of additional analysis, because what we just looked at here is, I think about it as the outcome, kind of the observables of what's happening. But that's got to be driven by something. And in part, it's driven by players playing around the world on the same game together in these lobbies. But it's also driven by what I have on this slide, and that's that gamer characteristics are really similar in the US compared to around the world.
So one of the items listed on this slide is age distribution. What do you mean by that?
So what I mean is that the percentage of gamers that fall into age buckets are really similar between the United States and other regions of the world. So like the percentage of gamers that are between the ages of 18 and 24 in the US is really similar to the percentage of gamers between that same age bracket in other regions of the world. That distribution looks really very similar.
And what product market are you using when you get this? Are you talking about AAA gamers, all gamers?
So I've done it two ways. What I'm talking about here is all gamers, but I've also looked at it for Call of Duty gamers, and it's the same, whether you subset it like that.
How about hours distribution, which I think is the next item here?
Yeah, so the next on the number of hours that gamers play, that distribution looks very much the same in the US versus other regions of the world too. And by game time hour distribution, I mean the percentage of gamers that play like 0 to 10 hours a year or 50 to 100 hours a year. That distribution and how often groups of players play, it's very similar.
And is following on the court's question, is that true just for all games, or is it also true for Call of Duty in particular?
I looked at it both ways, for all gamers and then limited to Call of Duty.
And were you able to determine if the same games are popular in the United States as in other parts of the world?
Yes, so that's also true. If you look at the most highly played games, that set of games that are most highly played in the US is a very similar set to the most highly played games in other countries around the world.
So taking all this evidence together, what conclusion did you reach about whether the geographic market in this case should be limited to the United States?
So my conclusion was that the relevant market is broader than the United States. All of this speaks to the nexus of where those important competitive decisions that are getting made, they are getting made at a broader level than the US because the gamers are similar, because of the way the games are being released. Those production and marketing and development decisions go beyond the US.
So in his written direct testimony, Dr. Lee said he doesn't agree with that because if the price of a PlayStation goes up in the United States, someone won't go and buy a PlayStation in Europe instead. What's your response to that?
I mean, it's not a construct that makes sense here because of where I started, is that sometimes we think about it like that because there are all these other competitors in other regions. And if we think about broadening the market, we're bringing in other competitors. But that's not the case here. We have the same products and the same brands and the same devices being sold around the world.
Well, let's turn now to
I think you just need to spin that out. So the price will impact in Europe? I mean, what's your conclusion that you draw?
So my conclusion is that when those pricing decisions get made, those production decisions, those development decisions, investment decisions, they're not made uniquely for the United States. They are made taking into account the global nature of this business.
Price just being one decision that they make, but all those other decisions as well are informed by what's happening around the world.
Exactly, because those gamers interact around the world, because those gamers look similar around the world, because so much is the same, it informs that those same decisions make sense to make around the world as one decision, not as a million different decisions for each country.
Actually, go ahead. No, of course, Your Honor. Let's turn back to Activision and to Call of Duty. One of the claims we've heard in this case is that Call of Duty is essential to Sony, or very important to Sony. Did you do any analysis of that issue?
Yes, I did a number of analyses.
Follow up on the question earlier, did you base these analyses on Sony's data?
Yes, because this was a question that was teed up with respect to Sony, I looked particularly at these questions using the Sony telemetry data that I had available to me so that I could be answering the precise question that's at issue here.
So, Doc, for the next few slides, we're going to avoid discussing any numbers and maybe try to speak about shapes and things like that. But what was the first thing you looked at in trying to assess this issue?
So the first thing that I looked at is how often gamers play COD, and so Call of Duty. So what this chart shows, it has two boxes, and the box on the left-hand side, the one that's the dark blue one with the red percentage above it, that's the percentage of gamers on PlayStation console that have never played Call of Duty. Never.
And then as we look over on the right side, what does that box represent?
So that box on the right-hand side then takes the remaining. Those are the gamers that have played some, and I break it up into bins by how much Call of Duty they've played.
And again, without talking about the percentages, is the first bin for the first light of the rectangle folks who play less than 5 hours in a year in 2022?
That's right. That's what that first bar shows. The percentage that played less than 5 hours of Call of Duty across the entire year of 2022 on their PlayStation console.
And the one after that is folks who played between 5 and 20 hours a year.
Correct.
So at most, less than 2 hours a month.
Correct.
Turn to the next slide, Doctor. What was the next analysis that you did?
So the second analysis I did to think about whether there was something uniquely important about Call of Duty on PlayStation is I wanted to think about those gamers that were playing Call of Duty on a PlayStation console. What portion of them were only playing Call of Duty? Like, if you played Call of Duty, was that all you did? And that's what this chart, or this pie chart, answered. And you can see the dark blue wedge here. That's the percentage of Call of Duty gamers playing on a PlayStation console that played 6 or more other franchises. And I don't show it here because it starts to get kind of hard to read, but there are quite a few, a good percentage of gamers that are playing, more than 10, more than 20 franchises.
And when you use the term franchise, what do you mean?
I mean, a franchise it's like a game that gets issued in different iterations over time. So Call of Duty is a franchise. It comes out as Call of Duty Vanguard and Call of Duty Modern Warfare. They have different iterations of different versions.
The dark blue is folks who played 6 or more franchises. What's the light blue represent?
The light blue is that percent of Call of Duty gamers that played 2 to 5 other franchises over the course of 2022 on their PlayStation console.
And how about the gray one?
Those are the ones that only played Call of Duty on their PlayStation.
Among franchises?
Among
we heard earlier today some statements from Dr. Lee about the relative amounts of money that Call of Duty gamers spend. Do you remember hearing that?
I did hear that.
Did you look at any data to try to assess that or put that into context?
Yes, I had that data available.
Again, without discussing the details, what are we generally looking at here?
So this is also coming from Sony telemetry data, and what I'm looking at are gamers of different franchises here and how much they spend on average in a year. And so if you read the numbers at the top, those are the average spending for that franchise gamer, that type of franchise.
The highest level of spending would be the box on the far left. Is that right?
That's correct.
Lowest on the right?
Correct.
I see there's 2 entries highlighted here. What are those entries?
The names?
You can say the names. Yes.
Okay. So one of them is the Sony first party game, which is an exclusive game. It's God of War. And the other one is Call of Duty.
And when you say God of War is an exclusive game, does that mean Sony publishes it just for the PlayStation and not the Xbox?
That's what I mean, yeah.
And does this chart show the relative proportions of spending between that game and Call of Duty?
Exactly. I thought that was an informative comparison for me in thinking about whether there was something unique or special about Call of Duty with respect to how much those Call of Duty gamers spent.
Doctor, did you
Can,
try?
can I just, by spend, you mean buying the game and also in-game
Yes,
purchases?
that's exactly right. My average annual spend is both the game itself as well as the post-sale monetization, however.
Doctor, did you do any analysis or try to do any analysis of the role that Call of Duty plays in forming purchase decisions of a console?
Yes, I did that.
How'd you do that?
So look, I don't know why someone buys a new PlayStation console. I can't ask all of them. But as an economist, one thing I can do is think of ways that I might be able to tease that out. And as I said before, I have PlayStation telemetry data available to me. So what I did is I looked at a particular window of time, and that's the end of October to the end of December 2022. And that was a very good period for me to look at because there were two games that came out during that time. One was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and the other one was the Sony first-party exclusive game God of War Ragnarok. And so looking at that period of time, as an economist, the way that I thought about this is if you really like and care about a game, it's probably going to be the game you're going to play on the first day. And so what I did was in this period of time, I tabulated what games people played on their first day of play. So, you imagine you plug in your console and you fire it up, and what's the first game that you play? And some people play more than one game on the first day. I should be clear about that. So all I'm doing here is tabulating the percentage of times those games were played on the first day.
Now, you said the bottom two games, Modern Warfare 2 and God of War, came out during this 3-month period. Was that true of the other games represented here?
Those are the two that came out in this window. A number of the other games on this list came out in sometimes several months ago or even several years ago.
And does this chart still show that the levels of engagement they had despite being older games on the first day?
Yes, it does.
And did you take anything in particular from the comparison between the Modern Warfare game and the God of War game?
Yes, so the reason that I thought that this was informative as a comparison, those two that are in yellow, was because both of those two games were recent releases, right? They not only like recent in the current time period, getting to the end of 2022, but they were released roughly at the same time. So that made them a useful comparison. Both of those two games were bundled with a PlayStation console. And I don't mean like all together. I mean that you could get a PlayStation console that was bundled with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, or you could get a PlayStation that was bundled with God of War Ragnarok. When you bought the console, what came with it was the game.
So they threw in a game.
Yeah. And then the third part that was useful for comparison for me is that I understand from third-party public information that Sony put in substantial marketing investment into both of those games. So it was a useful comparison.
And does this chart show how often people played those two games you mentioned on the first day?
Exactly right. So those percentages at the end of the bars and the length of the bars tells you how often that game was played on the first day as a proxy for how important that game was to sets of.
Now I see on this,
when people bought it and it was bundled, did they have a choice of which bundle? Or in other words, was it in particular, if you were buying it in Philadelphia, where you only offered God of War or Call of Duty?
I don't know the answer to that other than when we bought our PlayStation 5, I'm just going to give you an anecdote, which should not be like worldwide information. But my anecdote was that we made a choice between did we want the Modern Warfare 2 bundle or did we want the God of War
is testifying tomorrow, Mr. Kotick and Mr. Nadella. Mr. Kotick's the CEO of Activision.
Yes, I
you know. Mr. Kotick, his schedule, we need him to testify in the morning if that's
want to take him out of, do you want to stop this witness's?
Yes, and then we can pick up Dr. Bailey after that.
Is there any objection from the FTC? Yes, yes, the witness should not be talking to your counsel about your testimony.
And as to Mr. Nadella, we've worked this out with the government. He needs to testify at 1, so we'll just be a little fluid during the day
At
1:30. Yeah.
Or 1:30, okay, yeah. Let me tell you, I actually have to moderate a panel from 12 to 1. So we wouldn't start until, maybe we should just say we're going to have a break from 12 to 1:30 and we'll start with them.
That would be great, Your Honor.
Yeah, we'll do that for your planning purposes. And maybe we'll end up having to go a little bit later in the afternoon.
And can I ask just one final scheduling issue, Your Honor? This is more for the findings of fact that are due at the end of the week. Because of the time crunch, which we're all very thankful for, can we file them under seal and then file the redacted version
Yes,
next week?
absolutely, for both sides. Yes, for sure.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
God damn. They're going to have an hour and a half break tomorrow. That means it's going to be longer than an hour and a half break. Jesus Christ. I don't know if I can talk for an hour and a half straight. I'm going to be honest. You guys might just have to just sign out and do what you need to do. But yeah.
You smell like money.